Councillor.
Please go.
All right, Connie, take it away. Tell us about the process of this project.
Yeah, I will. Thank you. At any time, folks, let me know too if I am kind of fuzzing out. This is the joys of rural internet. My name's Connie. I'm joining you today from the PAW. I'm like many folks online here today. I'm a longtime history and geography teacher. Linda, I just will be so, I'm going to take about 2 seconds and talk a little bit about about the last 2 years in the pandemic. I'm not going to talk about 2 years. I'm going to talk about the last 2 hours. I got up this morning, walked downstairs here in my house. There is a brutal north wind blowing, and there's a giant pair of beaver mitts sitting on my kitchen table. The reason there's a giant pair of beaver mitts sitting on my kitchen table this morning is that it is Trappers Festival here in the PAW. It is the longest running winter festival in Canada. And so, Linda, I was thinking about the pandemic and resilience and the community. There's an absolute frisson in this community right now. There's an ice palace being built. There's a torchlight parade tonight. 50 years ago, Helen Betty Osborne was murdered in this community. And we've been on a healing journey for the last half of a century. And I have to say, I woke up this morning staring at the beaver mitts. My husband is pulling a float tonight in the parade. And I was actually had a sense of buoyancy and community and thinking that we can get through this. So thank you, beaver mitts, and thank you for the day. That literally was on my mind first thing this morning. Typically in the PAW, to burst all stereotypes, we don't have beaver mitts laying on our kitchen tables when you get up in the morning. I just want you to know that. Anyway, folks, my name is Connie. I'm a longtime history teacher, geography teacher. Here in the PAW of Pasqueyac, we are a combined community. There's a First Nations community on the north side of the Saskatchewan River. South side of the Saskatchewan River is a town and a farming area. I live in the farming district. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about the process of creating student learning materials, because this is why we're gathering today. This is just a conversation. It's not a prescription. It's just to get our creative juices flowing as educators. What can we do to build and support our brethren in the trenches, right? In a topic like this. So I'm going to spend some time, and it's again, this is malleable. It's just to get us thinking. I have a bit of a slide deck I'm going to attempt to share. Oh, host disabled participant screen sharing. So I might ask Hauser to allow me, if I may, screen share. So I'll give you a second. I know everybody is probably sicker than heck of PowerPoints, but I gotta admit, I'm a super visual learner. Can everybody see this, Linda? I just want to make sure before I start yammering on here.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm sure everyone can. Good, thank you.
So my background, as I said, folks, is, and I know many of you from other boards and tables and places, is teaching, but it is also in curriculum development. In developing learning projects. I have been blessed to have been involved in many learning projects. So what you see in front of you is really the foundation of a learning project. This is our professional vernacular as teachers. It is the great ask, the attitude, the skills, and the knowledge that make up an education program, right? The knowledge base is the content, and we've been tipping our toes in content since we've met Hauser and the team. The content of our project, right? Countering radicalization to violence in Manitoba schools. This is the content. And in my cruises across the country and other places, I find that many people spend a tremendous amount of time on the content, which is uber important. But as classroom teachers, the skills and the attitudes that shore up the content, in my mind, I'm seeing a Roman arch, the corner, the stone at the top holds it together, but you still need the sides. What skills do our kids need? What skills, whether it's critical inquiry, these are just questions we're thinking to build the framework that will be this project, the great ask, right? What attitudes and values can we foster as educators within this project? So if we are building a curricular framework, we start with the great ask, right? What do we need? The content, the skills, and the knowledge. And I'm going to say they are equally important. I always remind myself constantly, about the importance of skills. Those of you that have had the blessing of teaching physical education know the importance of skills, right? I mean, talk to any coach, but don't forget how important skills are in the knowledge area too. Sometimes we forget about that. And, we turn into an episode of more cowbell, and focus on the knowledge, which is uber important. You can also see in this framework too, I've embedded outside of learning outcomes, the work of Wiggins and McTighe. How can we really focus on the big ideas, the need to know? When my kids were in my class, I used to think they've got 4 pockets. I'm making this up in my teacher head. And I can, after 100 days of a semester, I can fill 4 pockets with big ideas. And as they go through life, they're going to keep them with them and shore those up. I'm going to build a foundation. I would say after 20 some years of teaching, I still, and probably like you guys in this meeting, I still have kids probably, well, they're not kids anymore, twice a year, shoot me an email or a text. Hey, Miss Wyatt, even though, the person's 40, I saw hoodoos for the first time and I was thinking of you. It's just, learning is recursive. What can we send our learners off? What are these? And what essential questions can we hone? So this is the framework. Whether we hash this out in a front matter or not, it is a driving framework for us as we go forward as educators in this project. So as we are delving in and we're spending these times together, we have to think about eventually what are our big ideas? What are our, conceptual Velcro as we go through this process? I threw this up as example only, folks. Remember, we are very early into this. What are the main frameworks? You're setting a table, you have 4 legs. What is holding this project up? What are the overarching big ideas that are going to move us forward in this project? Big ideas to me are malleable enough to move from curricula to different desks, to different teachers, to different spaces, but they are guiding enough is that they keep our project together. So this is, as we go through, keep this in your head. What are the important things that will guide us, the curricular framework? So I wanted to start with that. I wanted to, put our teacher hats on. Just like any other profession, if we were dentists or doctors or lawyers or mechanics, we have our professional tools. What I have just done is I've opened my toolkit on the table here. And we're going to start building, is what we're going to start doing now over the next few years together. Again, I want to say these are for example only. One of the things, and as I said, I've been very lucky to work on several projects. We want to keep in our mind too, I think, and again, you could disagree, this is just a beginning point. Where are we going to fit this into the practice that Manitoba teachers are doing right now? One thing that I can say as a longtime teacher, I don't need more work. I don't need another project. I don't need another binder. I don't mean to be mean. I don't need that. I have a curriculum. I used to chuckle. I used to tell the kids we go teaching Canadian history. We go 100 years an hour. So hold on. Okay. One year I was serendipity. I was teaching D-Day on June 6th. I said to my students, wow, this is really interesting. It's June 6th and then I had a complete panic attack when they left because it's 1944 and it's June 6th in my class and I'm supposed to bring them up to current times. Teachers don't need more work. They need a hand up. They need help. They need guidance. They need a toolkit. That's why we're here. So where is the best fit? I don't know. Is it through the social studies? Here in Manitoba, social studies is mandatory from K to 11, grade 11. Or do we want to look at natural entry points through all curricula? Teachers are fantastic weavers, let's help them weave into this. Social studies, if you look, and this comes right from Manitoba Ed's website, and all of you have seen this in different ways, but I like the last one. It helps students acquire the skills, knowledge, and values necessary to become active democratic citizens, contributing members of their communities locally, nationally, and globally. And I was really thinking about what you said, Mark, and what you said, Kevin, and what you said, Michael, at the beginning. Where is the fit? From my experience, any toolkit or supplementary educational program that doesn't come from the desk of Manitoba Ed is best embraced if there is a dovetail for it to go into, from my experience. If it is an add-on, teachers turn it into a special project. By the way, there's nothing wrong with special projects. I'm not saying that. Or it's just too much work. So let's see how, keep that in the back of your head, all the floating bubbles that are going on right now. As we're hanging out now for the next quite a bit, what do you think would be valuable? And forgive the, I'm breaking all the rules of having too much text, but forgive me. What would be valuable? If Gareth was in class right now, if Larry's in class, if Connie's in class, and if someone said to me, hey, look at this, what would be valuable to you? Think about this in the back of your head. Think of, you know, what teaching materials. Now, I'm not talking about front matter. I'm not talking about content. I'm literally thinking about stuff that would help me move these ideas across a student desk, you know, from the page into their heart, into action. What would be valuable? Things like student workbooks. Would things like lesson plans be valuable? Would a full-blown teacher's guide? Teacher's guides can take many, many, many different shapes and forms. Do you want a teacher's guide that's 6 inches thick? I don't know. By the way, a lot of this phrasing is my own terminology too, so forgive me. Do we want teaching packages? What do we want? I see your hand up, Marianne.
Oh, I'll wait till you're finished.
Oh, okay. By the way, I don't mind at all. I should have said that, and I appreciate Marianne for putting her hand up. Being a longtime history teacher, you know, or a high school teacher, I do not mind the jockeying of conversation. In fact, when it's quiet, I always have a little fear, like there's something. If you're quiet in a grade 11 class, there's a coup going on. I mean, kids aren't quiet, so I do not mind people ebbing in and out. Fret not. But these are just foods for thought. Food, forgive me, for thought again. You know, in 2 months we might meet and this might be out the window. But when I was in my head, I was literally thinking, what do we want? Do we want lesson launchers? Do we want, and there are some considerations as we go through, considerations for online learning. I mean, even pretend that all of a sudden COVID is gone and the birds are chirping and everything's, this online learning isn't going to disappear. We all know that. So what adaptations are we going to consider if not for synchronous, asynchronous learning? Do we want to gauge kids? Do we want apps? I don't know. We can flesh this all out as a team, what you think would be valuable. Other considerations in my mind, let's pretend it's 3 years down the road and we are, you know, in this gilded thing. And, you know, we have to think about evergreening. How do you keep this breathing and living over time? How do you keep this evergreen? Do we want some hybrid of online and print? Do we want tips for teaching sensitive issues? My background has largely been in First Nations, Indigenous issues. I mean, probably the most I wrote about teaching sensitive issues was writing a teacher's guide for the Helen Betty Osborne case. You know, how do you bring a rape and a murder that was left for 15 years to a classroom? How do you front load that? How do you so do we want to embed that? How do we get teachers on board? How do we get teachers on board in a good way? So these are just considerations. And again, forgive me, I'm literally throwing ideas at a page. I see Kevin, your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Connie. I just wanted to clarify, like, is the goal to be helping teachers, or is it students? Is it both? Because I think that would frame my thinking around what we want to come up with.
That is an excellent question. And I don't know, I think that's something we have to flesh out. In my mind with front matter, how much do you want for teachers? You're right, Kevin. I was thinking the same thing in my head. So I don't know. That's one of the great big, if we were in a room together, who knows? Do we want to just slide 6 lesson plans? Or boy, do we have to front load it with material for teachers? So in my mind, I kind of think, I know what I think, but that's why we're a team. But that is a super important question. I see. Yeah, Marianne.
I was just going to say, you know, we've just come out of this huge historic thing in Manitoba on Bill 64. Mm-hmm. And for those that don't know, I was hired by the Parent Council Association of Manitoba for 5 months to stop the bill. And we tried to organize a joint coalition between teachers and trustees and parents and other stakeholder groups. And we were unsuccessful in organizing that coalition because, well, for a lot of reasons, but we were successful in stopping the bill. And what was really evident is there's a lot of teachers who are very uncomfortable with doing things in their classroom that they see as political. And there are others that have a different orientation to education and think that that's what education has to tackle, the big issues of our time and of the previous time. So I really think that is fundamental to this. And I really appreciate what you're saying about it can't just be another binder. It can't just be another, like, I think we really have to get at this issue with teachers, and there's teachers of all political stripes, of all various worldviews, and how they view something as essential as, sort of the right, trying to capture the hearts and minds of youth. And I also frame things from more of maybe a social work kind of frame of looking at things in terms of prevention, intervention, and postvention. So how do we prevent? How do we intervene when students and teachers know that there are kids in the school that are going down this road? And then what happens when those kids are identified and that's the real, it's almost like unlearning, like kids that have really started getting involved with these kind of hate groups. So those are some thoughts that I'm having as I'm watching your beautiful slides here and thinking about this. And when I was subbing last year, and one of the teachers said to me, what are you talking about, Bill 64? We can't do anything about that. That's all going to happen during the day, and we have to be in our classrooms teaching. And I was just like, whoa, okay, this is what we're dealing with.
Yeah. I really appreciate your thoughts, Marianne, because obviously I come from, the history, social studies, geography world, but listening to the health, that's really important. And, the nice thing is there's lots of stuff out there, but we can approach this from a completely different place, a different framework, guiding. So that's really important. I appreciate that. Thank you. I see Michael's hand up.
Sorry, can I just intervene for one moment? Let's be careful not to go down the road of what right now. And Connie is doing this just as a to give us a great big overview of what the process is going to be. So let's not get down the sidetracks of what is the content, what are the values, what are the problems. We'll deal with those as they arise. So can we stay focused on Connie's, just walk us through the process of the next while? Thank you.
Yeah, I do want to hear from Michael, but thanks, Linda. I'm chuckling because this is literally my history class. My students were professionals, and all of a sudden we're talking about constitutionalism, and someone would say, "Ms. White, are those beaver mitts in the corner?" As a matter of fact, they are. Did you know that? Anyway, Michael, I will turn it over to you, and thank you, Linda.
Well, to keep us going down the rabbit hole, when I was like, from the last time we met, I've been really thinking about like, how will this look? Because like so often it's like, it's a binder, it's on a shelf, it collects dust, and that's its job now, is to collect dust. And I was thinking like, what's the best way to sort of like implement this? And it's like grade 9 social studies, that curriculum needs to be updated, and it hits everything. And it's a mandatory course, and it's it'd be perfect. Yeah, but that being said, and also I don't know if we're going to get math teachers to buy in on this. It's math teachers like math, and they like teaching math, and they're obsessed about it. And if they have time, extra time, it's more time for math. So I don't know if they're going, like, if we'll get the buy-in from other teachers, because they're so focused on what they're doing. Yeah, that was sort of just my idea, is that like grade 9, it's sort of, I think that's the sweet spot. in terms of the content. They've got a bit of a maturity level that they can handle it, and probably be the most effective in terms of I don't know how many grade 9s would be exposed to radicalism yet. So,
Yeah, probably. Yeah, hard to say. But I agree from a curricular standpoint, Michael, grade 9 for sure. I see that absolutely for sure. And I also agree, just being a longtime teacher myself, you know, the big heaving binder slid across the desk. I agree too. But I'm glad you guys are thinking, because the goal of this, when Linda asked me if I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the development process, my goal was to literally just slide some ideas to get them. What could this look like? Where could we go, you know, as we go through? So I really appreciate your comments. I also think, Michael and everybody else, about Manitoba curriculum. In my mind, a provincial curriculum is a recipe. I mean, someone slides it at me, and ethically and legally, I'm charged with delivering it, but I'm the cook. I'm the chef. My students are all Cree kids in Paskwayak Cree Nation. They come from this community. I'm working with my community. I'm adding in extra moose meat and garlic, whatever. I mean, I am cooking it with my students. So there is a malleability to this. And that's why I think a good program helps people take it. It's almost like the meal kit that everybody loves. You know, it's there, but you make it your own. That you make it your own for your own students. And I always think this in the back of my head. Thank you for your comments, everybody. What I did then, and I was thinking, what would be valuable? I just did a different, what pedagogical assets, what could this look like? And remember, we could do a hybrid. We have all kinds of creative things. We could go and make, and again, just think in the back of your head, what would be valuable? We could make typical lesson plans. You know that a lesson plan is a full-blown game plan, right? Whether with the activating, the acquiring, the applying. These are just on the left from the Hudson Bay Company. These are relatively new. Lesson plans are our trade. So this would help a teacher from the second they walked in a room. How would you get the kids' minds on, or activating, whatever you want to call it? Would you shore it up with some black line masters? I mean, lesson plans are out there. Do we want that? Don't answer me. I mean, think about this in your head. Would this be of value? Would this, remember, a lesson plan starts from the second you open the classroom door. Really, in a way, it's a game plan. Hey, everybody, how are you? You know, I used to do all kinds of cuckoo things, like tape things under my kids' desks. They didn't know. These would be activating activities. Bring beaver gloves to class or whatever. Then shore it up. Do you think this would be valuable? So these are some. So just think this in the back of your head. Remember, we could do multiple things too, but one way to engage teachers is in a lesson plan. I personally think the shorter lesson plan, the better. Remember the lesson plans you wrote in your B.Ed that were 47 pages long? They've kind of disappeared. Teachers like succinct lesson plans. This is why allrecipes.com is so darn popular. Think about it. You adapt and change. Do we want things like a student workbook? A workbook now has very little stuff for a teacher. It's stuff that you pretty much photocopy for kids. Do you want that? Do we need some big meaty front matters though? Think this in the back of your head. I was thinking about, you said, Kevin, these are just some. These are the one on the left is a workbook for engaging in the numbered treaties, using geographical thinking actually as the curricular framework. The one on the right is something from Orange Shirt Day this year. The thing that the National Center did, it was how you can create. So it's a worksheet. This is literally something that the teacher is going to have to do themselves, and then you could reproduce it and change it. Do we want this? You know, or is this, again, we can just keep this in the back of our mind. Do we want something like a full-blown teacher's guide? Teacher's guide could be 80, 90 pages, 100. There'd be front matter in the big content, pedagogy, you know, 90, 100 pages. Maybe there would be lesson plans inside. It depends. Think about what would be valuable. So there's different ways to approach this. There's some great examples floating across the country. We could hybridize. I know that's not a word. I'm sorry. At least I don't think it is. I don't know. So there's all kinds of different things we could do. Think about what would be valuable. But let's pretend we are not sliding across a 7-inch binder. We're going to say that's not valuable. Do you want some other things you know, some of the things I've really got to like, and I'm stealing this word from my friends at the National Film Board. I've been doing some work with them, and they've been calling them lesson launchers. Very short, not prescriptive. They're a nub of an idea. They're a nub of an idea. There's content, but there's some cool, if my internet's getting sketchy, let me know and I'll kill my camera, everybody. There's two examples here. What you see on the right comes from the National Film Board, and there's a film. You can go online as an educator, click, and there's just some cool little ideas, how to engage kids. It's not a full-blown lesson. It's not a worksheet. It's a nub of an idea. I don't know if that's good. The one on the left.
Your audio's Connie. So your audio's breaking up a little bit for me, and I wonder, would that be helped if you turned your screen off?
I will give it a shot.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because we're looking at your screen anyway. We don't need to see your little picture. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, good. I'm glad you said that. I just have to figure out how to do it now. Oh, stop video? Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Thanks, friends. My apologies. This is the joys of anyway, let me know again, Linda, if I'm sounding Darth Vader-y.
You're sounding better already, so let's hope this holds.
Okay, I'll keep my fingers crossed. On the left is a teacher's guide, and it's a different approach to lesson planning. It's a teacher's guide. It's about 70 pages, but it's conversational. It's if me and Marianne, and I could just see you, Marianne, that's why I'm using your name, and Michael, if we were sitting at a desk and we were just giving each other tips. So it's not a formal lesson plan. It's more of a conversation. And so that's a different approach. Would think about that. And I could share these and more. Michael, I see your hand up again. No, you're okay? Oh, it was probably up the whole time and I was ignoring you. Oops. Do we want things like teaching packages? And a teaching packages is a real meal kit. This is where you have a PowerPoint, a slide deck. You literally unzip the baggie, you know, this, I'm literally on the right, and Kevin knows quite a bit about this, Kevin, is Elections Canada have some and they're great stuff. It comes with a teacher's guide, games. You as an educator literally unzip a baggie and it's there ready for you. Some really cool simulations, videos. I mean, what is our capacity to do that? Do we want to engage teachers that way? If you have some time, take a look. Elections Canada has done a wonderful job. The one on the left comes from the Treaty Commission, and it's based on the premise of micro lessons. That's why it's called Treaties in 10 minutes, 8 kids, one theme only. There's a slide deck that a teacher could use or chuck out. Kids could do it at home. You could do a flipped classroom with this, and 5 questions. One of them inquiry. Do we want something like that? You know, we have an open pedagogical window. Great stuff online. This is the caveat, folks. I am no way a digital resource creator. I just want to say this, but there's some really good stuff. Do we want online to mirror print stuff? If you look, there's great stuff. You can see National Geographic is constantly redoing their things. Look at live lessons, homework. I mean, assessments for you as a teacher. You know, there's some really neat stuff. The bottom left is some cool stuff from Nelson Publishing. This is their online platform called Edwin. And it's almost like a Spotify for teachers. You can build and curate your own content. So let's say I was Michael teaching grade 9. I could literally pick videos, odd things, and build my own thing from a bit of a menu. So there's some really neat things that are out there. I want to say though, this is the caveat. I only picked 2. I know a lot of you know a lot more than I do, but again, this is food for thought. What would be valuable when, especially think of the content of this project? Think of the heart of this project. What would be valuable for Manitoba educators? There's other ones. We can do lots of blended stuff. The Eastham book. It's a teacher's guide. There's an accompanying app that goes with it. You know, are teachers embracing this apps more or not? Again, it's up to you. Anything that we print, and I know that my colleagues at Scholastic, almost everything they do now, they came out with a magazine series not so long ago called Take Action for Reconciliation, short magazine style. The kid like me that couldn't sit in class, I love these. They're short, they're graphic, they're Q&A for kids, but there's also an online edition. This isn't difficult to do, by the way. You guys have seen flipping books, I'm sure, or I mean, this is not, you don't have to be a tech specialist. Even Connie the Luddite could figure some of this stuff out. Is this valuable? So think in the back of your head, what would you like if all of a sudden this package came to class? What would be valuable to you? What is a good approach to support our teaching colleagues? There's many ways to go at this, right? What do we need in the front matter? And Linda sent me this yesterday. Kauser had shared this before I was part of the team. You know, what is important in content front matter? How do we set this up? How much do we have to lay out? I actually like this one, Kauser. I've seen other ones. What is our toolkit? Think of our project. Why this? Why now? I really like this. Then we could frame the pedagogy. But this is, do we need a glossary? I'm thinking yes. What would be valuable? What would be valuable as front matter? What would be valuable appendices if we're going this route? You know, would there be a supplementary toolkit for teachers, kind of like a Cole's Notes just for educators? I always remember years ago at the University of Manitoba, Ken Osborne, I was very, very lucky, was my advisor when I was student teaching in my last year. And I was a blubbering, nervous wreck having Ken Osborne as my advisor, but that's another story. But Ken told me something that I always, always have kept with me. He said to me, Connie, calm down. You only have to be one chapter ahead of the kids. And do we offer teachers the one chapter ahead of the kids to give them a sense of comfortableness? What can we do, you know, with this content? So thank you, Ken, for that. Is always stuck in my head when I'm scared talking about things. You know, what kind of tools, and I cut this from Canadian Geographic. They recently redid their education webpage, just as a thing. Lesson plans, teachers' guides. Do we need maps? Are maps? I love maps. Are they? You know, could we do digital maps? Would this support our overarching goals, going right back to our curricular framework? I doubt if we need a giant floor map, but just ignore that. This is just thinking about what we could do. So my goal this morning, everybody, was to just spend a little bit of time thinking about, we as a team of educators and specialists in our own areas and academics, what can we over the next 2 or 3 years craft of value to send across the table to our teaching colleagues? I see some hands. Linda, I'll turn the floor over to you. I didn't, inquiry and praxis. Yeah, Kevin, I agree. I'm just looking at the chat now. Sorry. I know Ken was awesome. I'm reading the chat. So Linda, I might bounce it to you and then we'll open the floor. How is time best spent? Thank you for letting me talk like an auctioneer. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Connie. I'm going to actually wrap the comments you have. I'm going to wrap them into item number 5 on our agenda, and with Kauser's permission to hold his piece until after that, because I think that so if you wouldn't mind bearing with me, because our time is actually getting away on us, and I'm conscious of some activities we have to do through this morning. Kauser, are you okay if we delay your little overview until after this next section? Good, thank you. We had asked you in our first meeting, what's going well for you? What's already working well for you? And so I'm going to wrap that question, our agenda item number 5, what's going well in your curriculum now, or what you have done in your past. I want you to wrap that question around what Connie has just done. And let's see if we can do 2 things at once to answer that question. She's put a lot of things on the table, really a lovely menu of possibilities, directions we can go. And please don't feel that this is your only and one chance to talk about this. It's just the beginning of the conversation. I can see Connie nodding over there. That, and even as we're talking, I'm thinking that this conversation could make up the bulk of our March meeting. We may want to establish what are the big ideas. We're going to start that with our terms and definitions today, but so it's one step at a time. We're going to get to where Connie is taking us. For now, though, the question on the table is what is already working well, what has worked well for you in the past, what is working well that we could and should consider doing in this next stage of the project. Does that seem reasonable? No, just give me a nod if you think that seems reasonable. Yeah, good. All right. Marianne, do you want to start us off?
Oh,
Can we
okay.
stay focused? Let's stay focused on that question because I'm very conscious of time is running away on us already.
I could have put my hand, ended up putting my comments in the chat. So on the pedagogy piece. So in terms of what has worked in the teaching that I've done about these topics is I taught a course at Red River called Working Across Differences. And it was part anti-oppression practice and part conflict resolution. And it used the book Becoming an Ally by Anne Bishop, who's a Halifax feminist educator. And it was extremely experiential. And it was a very difficult course to teach. And it was, a lot of things were very high risk, but it was and a lot of students said that it really changed the way that they looked at things, and it really focused on their own experience with discrimination and poverty and racism and heterosexism and everything. So I guess, and that's what I put in the chat. I think it really needs to be applied, and it needs that what we're doing needs to be applied, and it needs to look at the fact that students are dealing with all these issues. They have friends that are, watching these and playing on social media. And I also think that, especially coming from a community development kind of framework, where the emphasis is on the vision that we have and what we want our society and our communities to be, not what are we fighting against. So to really put our intention and our focus on the skills that we like, that social studies curriculum, that we want citizens who are engaged and who understand and support human rights and all those kinds of things, rather than this idea that we're going to fight hate. So those would be my couple of comments.
Thank you, Connie. Gareth?
I'm just wondering whether we need to keep our perspective open to beyond the classroom. When I think about those, let's see if I can go back to that for a second. The things, why and how people radicalize, and the extent to which things like belonging and feeling heard and feeling included, some of those things are school culture issues. And, Martin Brokenleg talks about culture being that which seems normal. Well, if our intent is to counter the radicalization of youth, and the research that you've already compiled in helping us with our thinking suggests that radicalization happens not necessarily, well, I mean, we know that in an information approach or a knowledge approach doesn't change many people's minds. Arlie Hochschild talked about the fact that each of us have a really deep story that is almost unshakable, and we accept facts that support our deep story, and we could reject facts that don't agree with our deep story, and we accept falsehoods that agree with the false story. So when we think about classroom work, and think that persuasion or knowledge will be our primary vehicle, that's where I appreciate the comments from Connie and others and Marianne, skill development. But I want to think maybe beyond the idea of curriculum supports for teachers, and think about how, I'll just back up to the question, what went well? When I think about the last school that I was in, the teachers decided that they would all take peaceful conflict resolution training. And so suddenly the culture of the school changed, so that when there was, and the kids all knew that this was going on and they understood how the thing works. So if a conflict was brewing between two kids and it was going to be out on the schoolyard at noon, they knew that there was an avenue through trained teachers that said, I heard something was going on. Can we sit down and talk about it before lunch happens so that it doesn't blow up? So there was this culture of kids feeling listened to and heard. We developed with student voice something called a respect agreement. And they all began describing what kind of behavior would be respectful. And one of them, for example, was that teachers don't yell at kids. Well, one time in my principal's office, I guess I was raising my voice a little bit, and I had a big poster on my wall with the respect agreement, and the kid turns around and points to to the statement that says teachers don't yell at kids, and I tried to persuade him that I hadn't been yelling, I'd just been raising my voice. So in what are some of the things that have gone well? I think we need to, and is that a teacher issue? I agree with the person who talked about, Michael, I think said, we're not going to get the math teacher on board. I think the culture shift that counters the radicalization of children and marginalization and feeling disregarded is much bigger than anything that a social studies teacher or another kind of teacher can make a profound, fundamental shift in.
Thank you, Gareth. That sounds like a final comment. Shall we move on?
It was a final comment.
Okay, thank you very much. Kevin.
Okay, two things that I'm thinking here, just in terms of what has worked well. You know, we're all bringing different perspectives to this conversation, and you know, mine comes from you know, my classroom world, where you know, establishing a safe place, dialogical space is super important. And so, in terms of like, I don't know if prevention is the right word, but like establishing a classroom where kids are comfortable talking and having conversations is super important. And I think anything that we do, I think, should reflect that. But then my second point, and where I don't have the experience and will look to others for help, is what to do when confronted with radicalization. So, you know, I can have this safe spot, safe space in my classroom to have discussions. But, you know, even the other day, that was all well and good until I had a kid who said that Justin Trudeau should hang. So now what? That's where my knowledge sort of stops. So I can create this safe space as best I can. We can have courageous conversations, but then what when we're confronted with it?
Excellent question, Kevin. I want to put the idea on the table, not for discussion, but just to plant a seed, kind of as Connie did, that I think we have to give ourselves permission to try not to do everything, because that is not going to be possible. We are not going to be able to deal with creating a giant curriculum. I don't think we have to be focused on doing, you know, reams of front matter. Our focus, I think, from the beginning has been toolkit. So this is just a seed for thought, and we'll get further to that in a while, but let's not try to do everything. Kevin, you've raised some really good questions. What do we give teachers? What do they need immediately? Maybe one of our drivers right at the moment. I'll pass it over to you, Lloyd.
You're muted. You're muted, buddy.
Thanks.
No problem.
2 years in, one should know. I was just going to build on what Kevin and Gareth said, and to just embed my comments in my own experience. I was a classroom teacher for 25 years. For the last 10 years, I've done research with a group called the Global Teachers Inquiry Project, which includes teachers from across the province. I've written one book on experiential learning and global citizenship, and I just edited a book that asks for teachers from across the country to talk about the most important things they have learned about teaching for global citizenship. 3 of those chapter authors are on this call. And the question I've asked all the way through, and it is, what is it that I as a teacher can do in a classroom that really effectively, positively affects the trajectory of students' lives? And it comes back to this question right from the beginning, is caring for people, helping them to feel like they belong and they're part of the community. And Kevin and I had this conversation on Friday. It's easy to listen to folks who see the world as we hope they would see the world. It's much more difficult to listen to people and help them feel like they belong if they don't see the world the way we do. And we don't want them to see that world that way. And that is, I think, the one thing that I've learned from all of my colleagues in the last 35 years is that the province of Manitoba and the city of Winnipeg has some of the most caring, thoughtful, listening teachers that I've known, and I've known a lot. And I think that is, if we're addressing the question about what is already working really well, and we don't know, because we don't have those numbers. We don't know how many people we have helped not to become radicalized. But I do know that we have a lot of caring teachers, and I think that is, if we're going to develop a toolkit, and Connie, you had a lot of wonderful ideas there. These things will only matter. These tools that we manipulate will only matter, I think, to the extent that it's engaged with by a teacher that cares and listens with respect. And I am heartened to hear everyone so far, and that's what I'm sensing. Thanks. Next time I will.
Thank you, Lloyd. I'm gonna jump in with a comment myself that will just reflect something you've just said, Lloyd. Some of you may know this, and if you don't, it was perhaps the most profound learning I had as a junior high teacher in my first year teaching junior high, fresh out of elementary school teaching. We had a workshop with a psychiatrist from the Selkirk Institution who said, sometimes all it takes in the life of a young person, an adolescent, is to have one person who cares for him to prevent that child from going on and committing suicide. Have one person who shows that they think that that child, that student is important. So I think that reflects a bit of what you've just said, Lloyd. Thank you for that. Mark.
I think, okay, I'll go quick. I saw Izzy's hand and Saad's hands up. So what's worked in my classroom, or what has gone well, I like that better than what's worked. That's well framed. Is whenever I've been able to foster reflection and perspective taking, those two things have worked. So those are sort of process bits. And Connie, you're so good. Because you just, you know how to frame. I really appreciate that menu. And if we're sort of like focusing our efforts on the creation of a toolkit, then I think that those things that help habits of reflection and perspective taking are probably key parts on that. Now, I'm not 100% sure how you do that, but I mean, there's a lot of smart people here. I think that one thing that's missing, so one of the things I've been trying to help my students think about is the fact that it is a reality. It's not a political statement to say that group and individual identities are formed through schooling. That's not a political statement, right? That's not a left-wing or right-wing statement. In fact, I think both left-wing and right-wing groups object when they see evidence that schools are shaping student and group identities in ways they don't like. So that may be, and it tends to be something that my students respond well to when I say, like, hey, think about all the ways that your experience in school has shaped how you think of yourself. Think of times when things at school made you feel uncomfortable. You didn't want to talk about them at home, right? Or times when you felt like the things you talk about at home wouldn't be welcome in school. And perhaps that is something that responds to the groups of teachers who will go like, I'm not putting some political agenda into my classroom. And it also may have some ability to cross curricular areas as well, because I could see that in a health class and in possibly even in geography classes or anyway. So those are the things. One thing I know we're talking about a toolkit, but I'll tell you, one of the ways that I've seen curricular materials flourish has, and you know, why do some things that are really good not get picked up, and some things that are really good get picked up? And I think part of it is the rollout process. I would love to see a bit of a professional development model as part of this, and I'd be very interested in. I know that takes money, but I think there's also grants available, and I'd be very interested. I mean, we got a bunch of academics here who can have the luxury of writing grants to sort of build knowledge mobilization models, and that might be a thing down the road that would really help. Is getting, yeah. Anyway, that's all I've got. I said I would be brief, and then I wasn't.
Miracle of magic, wish granted, Mark. We have got PD built in to the project and budget already allocated for that. And guess what? Connie is going to do it for us. So that piece is already in place, and we'll certainly talk more about that quite a bit down the road. Thank you. Saad.
One thing that's worked well, and as a number of people alluded to here as well, is in a classroom, as long as students believe that they belong, and that they aren't shut down, that they have a voice. I think that goes a long way. And it's not, you know, this marketplace of ideas where the best idea wins. That's a separate debate, but it's more akin to, yes, I'm heard, whatever it is that I'm saying. And a very good example of that, I'll write the name in the chat box, was a cleric in the United Kingdom, Abu Hamza al-Masri, also known as Captain Hook. And Captain Hook he was an imam at a mosque, which was supposed to be the hotbed of radicalization and so on. And he had these extremely highly rhetorical speeches about the infidel West and blah, blah. Turns out that Captain Hook was actually paid for and funded by the MI5. And here was the reason, that when these young kids would go to him filled with rage, he'd let them speak. And the philosophy was that as long as they're able to get it out, they won't take the next step. Right? And I think that as teachers, we also sort of have that responsibility to make those kids, you know, kind of feel as they belong. And the next part, and I think Kevin raised it, what to do. Again, that's a long thing as well. But to me, and Mark alluded to this, the group identity business, right? When do they move from I to we? And as long as we're able to get that, you know, transformation from I as a person to we as a group being targeted, I think that's probably a very good thing to do. There are a number of things, I can sort of talk about them at some point, which can be done. Again, ideas about short-term things that can be included as interventions in a toolbook or in a toolkit, and long-term stuff too.
Thank you very much, Saad. I trust that was the end of your comment.
That was.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Seeing no other hands up, this is not the end of the conversation, just the beginning of it.
Yeah, I'll cut you off for a second, Linda. Forgive me.
Okay.
I think Izzy might have had his hand up and we might have missed it. Yeah,
sorry,
sorry,
Linda.
Izzy.
Thank you. And I did miss that. I've been watching the little yellow hands on the screen now. Go ahead, Izzy.
I don't have that little hand thing. I don't know why, but so I appreciate that you've noticed. This is all excellent. I mean, I can build on so much of what's been already said, but for me, and please forgive me if I keep bringing it to the community and the personal level here. I come at this from a post-colonial lens, and we have to think of this, and we must think of the communities that we are talking about. So when we talk about the topic of radicalization and who's being radicalized, we're talking about marginalized communities for the most part, and I come from one of them. All my time in Canada, when it comes to the topic of terrorism, radicalization, my community has always been in the center, and for so long, and still, my community has always been, with brushed or colored with one brush, if you will, when it comes to talking about this big, wide topic. So it is important to go back and think about, when we talk about pedagogy, what pedagogy are we trying to implement? And is it from a Western lens? Is it from a non-Western lens, and so on and so on? So I think that a hybrid system would be good here, or an integration of both. Also, I think of my work here at school. If this was to come down, like if this tool was to be sent to my school, it would probably trickle down to the social studies department. And me and 6 teachers would get it, and it would be up to us to do something with it. Okay. Now, in a school with 122 teachers or so, there are 6 people who would know about this. Okay, so I'm putting that up there, and it would be up to me. And as we've been talking about how sometimes people are not comfortable talking about these conversations or taking them on, it would be put on the shoulders of people of color and minorities, for the most part, to take these tasks on and to unpack them and to work with them. So I want to put that out there. And I want to build on something Garth has said, which is conflict resolution skills. And I think of peace studies and peace education, and how that could also be a very important component to all of this. So when I look at Connie's framework, which is excellent, I'd like to add a few things on that screen, which one of them would be peace building, peace education. Secondly, I want to put a category with a big bubble that has limitations on it. And we can work with that later on. And one of the limitations is we don't know the stories of these marginalized communities. As a Muslim, many people know so many things about me and my community, but they're not what I know of myself and my community. So the story of me has not been shared or understood in the right light. So it is important to create these spaces, and Mark alluded to those safe spaces and so on and so on, where people can actually exchange stories person to person. And I think this would be a beautiful way, a human way to interact and to build and to work on this toolkit. So, because we're talking about humans, we're talking about communities, we're talking about families losing, and families that are, who face things like that are in pain, and so on and so on. So we cannot separate the human from all of this. Finally, the buy-in component. How do you get teachers who don't really have I don't know how to use the word, but they don't have a certain attachment to this topic, who live their lives away from all of this? It doesn't concern them, and I know plenty, okay? How do you get them to understand that this is important to everybody, okay? So things for me that I will actually work with. If this was brought to my attention in school, I would think about all these things before I talk to my colleagues. And one of the things, frankly, that I would get in terms of responses, like, well, what I have to do this, how am I supposed to do this? I've got 31 kids in the classroom. How am I supposed to work with this, and so on and so on. So leadership is important as well. So we also have to talk about leadership in schools, and how do we approach leadership, and how do we bring them along and to have their support as well. So all these pieces may be or can be added onto that web, if you will. And of course, maybe another leaf that could go on. And I appreciate someone said, make this alive, make sure this document stays alive. I think the future, so something about future. How do we take this and make sure people continue to build on it and keep adding to it? How do we take these stories and make them a collection of stories? And the word that comes, the pedagogy that comes to mind is ethnography. And I've used that in my classes, and it's been a wonderful tool to share stories of marginalized people and marginalized communities. Shukran.
Thank you. Was that word ethnography that I just heard you use? Good, great, thank you. Well said, everyone. Lots of food for thought, isn't there? Kauser, I'm going to ask your permission again Hauser, do I see you? We're going to delay your overviews because I'm conscious of the time. I had suggested on the agenda we were going to have a break at 11 o'clock, and we have built into the break a Jamboard session that Connie is, sorry, not Connie, Marianne Sorelli is going to walk us through, and we're just approaching the time to begin that. Marianne, did you and Connie sort out all that's needed, and is everything prepared for us to move ahead with Jamboard? Yes, good. Anything else we need before we just proceed? Are you ready just to go, Connie? Marianne?
Marianne, should I make you co-host?
You're muted. Marianne, you're muted.
Sorry, I was just adding something to my phone. So I'm wondering though, were the instructions emailed to everyone?
No, they weren't. I'm just.
That's something that we could do right now. I just think it's good if people have it for themselves as well as we'll share it on the screen.
Okay. Are you going to do that?
Sure.
Okay.
Marianne, do you want to put it up in chat or?
I will put it, you can put it in the chat, and then I just think it's good because this is something that people are going to be able to do after the meeting as well, that we're going to create some links in Google Drives that people can add to. So just give me a second to
Perfect.
While Marianne's doing that, just as background, this is going to kind of dovetail and flow from what we've just talked about. We're about to proceed on just a little project mapping, capturing some of those big ideas that Connie referenced in her overview about process. What are the big drivers of this project? What are the big things that are overarching ideas that we need to pay attention to? So while Marianne is doing that, or anyone?
I'm doing two things at once. So it makes sense if someone else who has the instructions can email that. So, because I don't have an email handy with everyone's email on it.
Okay.
But then I'll get ready to share my I'm still not able to share my screen.
Marianne, I'm just trying to add you as a co-host.
You can just hit the green button beside that arrow. It says multiple share. I don't need to be a co-host, but
Can we take 5 minutes and have a quick break now before we go into your introduction? Let's do
Sure.
that.
that would be a good.
Everyone, let's just take, what time is it? It's 10:43. Come back at 10 to 11. That'll give you about 8 minutes, 7 or 8 minutes. Come back at 10 to 11. Hopefully we'll have this all organized for you.
Thank you. Marianne,
Yes.
what do you want me to do? Sorry.
Yeah. The green button where it says share screen,
Share screen,
There's
okay.
an
Okay.
arrow beside that, if you click, it says multiple people can share screen.
Oh, it is disabled, Marianne.
Oh, well, who is hosting the meeting?
Myself, but possibly the university, because it's an university account.
Well,
So, yeah,
You might have to share the Jamboard then.
okay.
If you share the
yeah.
Jamboard, I can just speak to it.
Correct. That I can do, right? So, Linda, can you send me the email where, because there are so many emails here.
Connie, can you send the email where the instructions are? I'm sorry, I don't know which one that was.
Now that we have a break, I can do the email if that's the easiest.
Okay.
If Hauser should have now the Jamboard in his access through his Google Drive.
Oh, okay. Then I'm going to Google Drive now.
So I'll just find an email that I can, where I just had the email that was for the meeting with the agenda. Let me go back to that one.
That will have everyone's email on it.
Yeah.
Marianne, can you access our Google Drive by any chance?
I don't think I've got permission to access yours, but I've given you permission to access the Jamboard.
Oh.
Connie has all she added everyone on the list to
Because this is what is I wanted to share with all of you, I mean, especially with you, that we are putting everything here. And,
yeah.
Yeah, and I will send you the password and access what do you call Gmail, and I think because we are keeping everything, Zoom recording, etc., all here. It's a central kind of our so, Marian, can you see? I have already shared in my shared screen.
Just a sec, I'm writing the email with the instructions. You will have access to the Jamboard and the Google Drive.
I see. Okay.
I'm just calling them hate group drivers. I mean, we haven't kind of all agreed, like the language, the radicalization language and all that. Okay, so that's done. I sent the email. So I'm seeing your shared screen now. You've got the document there, the Google Drive. So if you pull that up.
Which one? The hate group drivers?
No, the one with the stickies, the colored one. Yeah. They'll be able to look at their own email. So now they can print those instructions. Like I printed mine. So and it says right on it, printed on legal size paper because it's a little longer than
yeah, correct. Okay, so should I keep it up?
Pardon me?
Should I keep this one up?
Yes, this is
okay.
Should be up now.
Perfect.
And I'll walk through the instructions, and we'll, if we don't have as much time as we thought to do this, then we can just kind of introduce it. I'll explain the steps. We can try it out a little bit with the stickies and show them the shared drive. So you will have to change to the other document that has the, that one is called the links to the drivers. So it's a document that has the links for each of those sticky categories. So we'll be able to share that as well.
Link to this one?
Yes.
Correct.
So then what people will be able to do, and I've done this in a Zoom meeting where people can click on the link, they go to a Google document, and then they can type their ideas into the Google document during the meeting. But if we want to spend time doing that today, we can just introduce it. And then people will have a chance to do that on their own time. But we kind of felt that these are all very busy people. We want to kind of get them hooked into it a little bit, engaged in it a little bit. So that's why we wanted to try it at the meeting. And I have no idea of people's experience with using, I call this digital organizing. But it's just digital tools in any kind of digital classroom. This is what we do now, right?
Absolutely. So Marian, a quick question myself. I am also, I also learn every day. So these two important things, these are in your Google Drive, right?
This chart is in mine. Yes.
In your Google. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So what I will explain is that the first thing to do is people will be able to go to that Jamboard and they'll be able to read it and then think about what is missing, what are the drivers that are missing. So at first, we just give people a chance to, and if now we're not going to take a longer break, I don't know what you're going to do, but the idea is you can build in some of the activity when people have a break. That's how we had planned it before.
Well, I think we can, I'd said 15 minutes for the break. Maybe we can just shorten that up a little bit. And we'll just play that by ear when everyone gets back on. I think we can, I think I still want to do a little bit of let them try it out. We may not take as much time.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's give it a try, and then we can invite people to share afterwards, and maybe we'll revisit this at the next meeting if we decide it's working or if it's valuable. We'll see how that goes.
Okay.
I think we can just be flexible about it.
Well, and so I'm just going to take a quick break myself and go to the bathroom.
Yeah, go ahead. Take a minute. Sure.
Okay.
I'll ask you this, Kauser.
Yeah.
We had allotted quite a bit of time for you at the beginning to do those overviews, and I thought it was really a valuable opening, and it took longer than I had planned, but it's
No, it's 100% all right, Linda.
Okay,
We need encouragement as well, right?
Okay. So if we don't get to those 2 items on the agenda we had allotted to you,
It was good and it was important.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Linda, but Counselor, you okay if that falls off the agenda for today and we postpone that?
But I don't want to take more than 5 minutes though.
Oh, sure. Yes.
I will because
We'll do that after Jamboard. How about we'll do it right as soon as we come back from Jamboard?
Yeah, absolutely. Because
Thank you.
I just wanted to let them know that because I'm meeting Tim and he's very kind, given all the situation with him, but he agreed to speak with me. So I'm going to just show the Twitter is ready.
Oh, don't do it now, but we'll do it in we'll do it right after we come back from Jamboard.
No problem.
Good. We're still waiting for a few people. Saad, I have to say, I'm very impressed how you spouted poetry off the top of your head. When you did our opening this morning, now very impressive.
I think they had a talent to reflect our deepest, joys and anguish both.
You should know he's Global College.
I also just wanted to take a second to say, Saad, that my student teacher this year speaks very highly of you.
That's always nice to hear. Thanks.
Yeah,
Kevin.
yeah, he called you his best instructor at UW. So there you go.
Just to join in, he was my professor several years ago, and he was absolutely fantastic and was always spouting off poetry and stuff, and I absolutely loved it. So glad to see that you haven't changed.
Thanks, Luke.
So for those of you who are just tapping in, we think we have it organized. Marianne just took her quick break and she'll be back with us in a moment. We're just getting this set up so we can, just curious, how many of you have actually done Jamboard in Google Drives? Yeah, show me here. Okay. So this will be a learning experience for some of us. And be prepared for some frustration. Don't worry about that. It's just see this as a learning activity. We're going to give it a try. If it works, we may be able to do more of it in the future. Who are we waiting for now? Izzy is not here, but Izzy may, I know he's teaching. So, oh, good, excellent. I think we should proceed. How are we time-wise? Let's proceed. Marianne, I'll turn it over to you to introduce us to Jamboard and give us the instructions.
Well, thanks everyone. And I think Kauser's sharing the Jamboard. So I kind of missed when Linda was asking how many people have used Jamboard as well as used Google Drive documents on a Zoom meeting before, but that's kind of what we're doing.
I think only about 3 hands went up, Marianne.
Oh, so
I think 3 hands went up. So there may be some, so it's new for a lot of people, including myself.
Okay, well, you know, and I kind of joke and say I'm determined to keep up with the 20-somethings and learn this technology so that I can do community organizing and all the things that we need to do in this digital universe that we're working in now. So this kind of came up, and all of you will have the instructions that I'm going to go through now in your email. So during the break, we emailed you the instructions as an attachment to your email. So this came up because when I approach an issue, this is what I start with, is I kind of try and map the issue and the drivers. So I shared this with Linda, and it was just a sheet of paper initially that looked like this. And I put it into this Jamboard format because Kauser and Linda thought it was valuable. And this is really stepping back and taking a bird's eye view, a big picture view of what is driving the rise of hate groups or radicalization, and you know, what sort of kind of the discussion we were having at the very beginning of the meeting. So this is really leads into us to taking a systems thinking approach and looking at the ecosystem that's happening globally. This is an international issue, obviously. And I think that, you know, this really feeds into the discussion we were just having about this is an issue of school culture. This is an issue of the culture that we live in, the political culture, the social, you know, the globalized world that we live in. And some of these areas then will become areas for the development of our curriculum tools and that. So, but initially this is just to try and get us into a big picture view and kind of come to some agreement on that. So the way that I frame this, and if you have the document open, there's a wheel there that I will look into. Oh, that's something else in the chat. So I'm not sure that if people have their document open with the instructions, but there's a diagram there of the health wheel or the medicine wheel, the sacred circle. It gets called a lot of different things. And as a health teacher, I've used that that Indigenous tool a lot because it connects us on an individual level, to the community level, to the systems level. And that's explained in the instructions, because as everyone's just said, you know, we have to go from looking at kids feeling like they belong in the classroom and in the school and in their community, but then also we have to look at how that gets reflected in larger systems. So that's
Marianne, let me interrupt just for a moment. I just want to make sure that everybody's with us and everybody has the instructions before we go too far ahead. Connie, I saw a chat message from you. Have you been able to solve that problem?
You can, if Kauser can, he could share on the screen now the instructions page. If he has that handy, that might be helpful as a, you know, we're all teachers here. So the page I just sent, and that will be helpful because we're just at the point where I was going to explain the categories of the stickies and why they're different colors.
But hearing nothing, I'm going to assume everyone's on board and up to where they need to be. So
here we go. Okay, this is it.
Okay,
So
Marianne.
this is what you got. So I was just explaining, if you can go to the box and the diagram, move up a little bit. So the stickies don't correspond with the colors in the wheel. The green stickies, though, are the emotional and social sector. The blue stickies are the mental, so political, education. Oh, Kauser, you can, that's right, that's where it should be. Leave it there. And then the pink stickies, when we go back to the Jamboard, some of the stickies are pink. That's the physical systems, the economy, the environment, the natural environment, the built environment. And then the yellow stickies are the cultural, the spiritual, media, arts, religious groups. That's how I've sort of categorized the different areas of drivers, of what are driving the growth of right-wing extremist groups, hate groups, whatever we're calling them. So you can scroll up a little bit, Kauser, and go to the next section where it talks about, the drivers. So the other document that we're going to be working with is a Google Drive, which has a chart with the links, and it breaks down the drivers into things that are, for example, in social media. What is it about social media that's contributing to the expansion of hate groups? And then there are things about social media that could inhibit, the fact that it could be shut down, for example, the fact that they shut down the GoFundMe for the convoy. And then there could be neutralizers, which are things like, you know, parents being able to say to their kid, you know, you can only spend so much time on social media, or to make sure that they're not going on to sites that are promoting hate. You know, there could be things that could be done outside of social media to kind of neutralize that as a driver for kids being drawn into this. So if we go up a little farther, there's these steps. So what we're going to do is we'll go back to the Jamboard after we go through the instructions. You'll get an opportunity to read what each of those stickies say in each of those 4 categories and get familiar with it a little bit. we want you to consider what's missing based on your knowledge and experience. What areas are driving this that are missing, or what issues, what trends, all those kinds of things. And we could have a chance where you could create a sticky for yourself. We can explain that once we're on the Jamboard, how that works if you haven't done it before. And then we could go into groups where you actually would click on that Google Drive, and we'll definitely have time, you know, you'll have time to do this after the meeting. And then you can add your ideas about that driver. So you could add things in this, in the driver under social media. For example, you could talk about what is it about social media that's driving this, and then what are the inhibitors and the neutralizers. And we'll be able to keep this Google Drive alive, and we can do that on our own time and use that as, you know, kind of data and information as we're developing the project. So we're not going to spend about as much time on this activity as we initially planned, but we did want to, I guess, just introduce it and see if people, how people respond. So we can go back to the Jamboard. Maybe we can have a time for people just to ask questions or make comments to clarify what we're doing as you have an opportunity to read the stickies. And I have a touch screen, so but it may be hard to read some of them. So it might be that we could, I don't know if you want to try and make it a little bit bigger, Kauser, if you want to zoom into some of the ones that are a lot of text. Yeah, that's it. Just enlarge so I'll give people a chance to read them, and then we can have just sort of some comments. And you know, it'd be good to be able to just go around the group. We're not going to have time for that to add these, but we can have some general discussion about stickies that or drivers that we think are missing.
Marianne, quick question. Can multiple persons interact with the same workspace, or, you know, working together?
Yes, if you shrink it back down, I can explain how that works.
Yeah, you need to show the toolbar at the side.
Yeah. So if you see at the top here, there's these little animals, and if you put, Kauser puts this, there'll be like, it'll say anonymous goose. So what people can do is, it's live right now. When they go into the Jamboard, then they can make themselves one of these animals with their names. Oh, someone's already doing it. And then you click on this sticky on the side here, where underneath the dot with the arrow, and that's how you generate a sticky. So Kauser, you could show that. Because the other thing is, everyone has access to this Jamboard already. We've entered all of your emails. So if you go into your Google Drive, you will have access to this Jamboard, and you can manipulate it. So
Marianne, I have a question, Marianne.
Yes.
I have my iPad in front of me, but I'm in the Zoom link on my laptop. Can I be on the laptop and on the Zoom call at the same time, or do I need two devices?
You can, and I always use a second screen when I'm doing stuff like this, but I'm not controlling the Jamboard because it's on Kauser's. The university does, just so people know, the university seems like it doesn't allow him to share the Zoom call, so I can't manipulate the Jamboard right now. So we're kind of hamstrung. But if everyone wants to, they could go into the Jamboard on their computer.
Can you do it at the same time that you're on a Zoom call?
Yes.
Like on one device? Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And one, I would say, irrelevant question. So do you have to use all the animals' name? I'm running out of animals' names.
I don't know how many animal names there are. How many
I
people
actually can help with this. There's up to like 75, I think. So I
70? Oh,
yeah, Drive will automatically generate them for you. It's an anonymous security feature thing. Also, if I may, I think the issue we're having with this co-hosting sharing screen thing may be because there's already a co-host. So I'm not sure if removing a co-host and then adding Mariana's one may fix the screen sharing issue. Just my 2 cents. I don't know if it'll help, but it might.
excellent. Who is the co-host now? Let me see.
Was it Connie?
Yes, you're right. Kristen, as always, thank you so much. And now,
Hey man, that's why I'm here. I'm tech support.
Well,
she is always phenomenal. Okay.
Involved in setting this up though, because my sense is with this meeting now and how much, you know, it's 11, we've got 2 hours. How much time do we want to spend on this? And is it more important to engage people in the content rather than trying to get people on board to manipulate it?
Marian, before we answer your question, can you try now? Please.
Yes, I can.
See, Kristen is always right. So.
Oh, stop.
So excellent.
I have to go out and go to my.
Fantastic. So, okay, good. So Kristen, one quick question. Can there be more than one co-host?
I assume not. I assume that was the problem. I know I've had other classes where the professors had to give multiple students co-hosting abilities, so that might be a setting you can change. But I can talk to that professor and see how they did it.
Yeah, just you know, don't rely on me. So if you kindly.
I'm going to put the link for the Jamboard in the chat and see if that works. Then people should be able to click on that link and they should get to the Jamboard.
Oh, I think Connie already had it in there.
Oh, okay. So are you on the Jamboard, Mark Cooley? You are. Okay. So then,
Marianne, sorry. I'm once I get into the Jamboard, what do I go from there? I'm a bit lost, to be honest.
okay, well, let's look at it. So then what you do first is you go to the top where the animals are and you take an animal. So I'm going to be anonymous coyote. Oh, that's not letting me do that. Couldn't find user joined.
Yeah, that's what it told me as well.
How do you join though? Yeah.
We need
if I may, I know from personal experience with Drive that that anonymous animal thing isn't, you don't get to select it, it's assigned to you.
Oh, it's assigned.
And it's because it's a privacy feature. Right. So that if you have a bunch of people who aren't contacts on Drive, it's not showing the other people your name.
Okay.
So I think there's a way to get around it, but you don't select the animal, you're just assigned one.
I don't think you need to do that anyway. Like someone has already got a test note, Kevin. So if you click the sticky, you get a little window that pops up and you can add a driver. So that's what we can do now is, and we can delete the ones in the middle. If that's just because if we can do a test to make sure you know how to, and the colors, you know, can match those categories. If you figure that out. So yeah, it looks like people are doing a test. They figured out how to create a sticky and then you can move the sticky around. So I'll create one that has my name. And then I can, oh, where'd it go? There it is. Good. So then I can move mine around. And then the buttons on the side, it allows you to delete the stick.
Excellent.
So, you know, this is all, and you know, students love doing this, right? It's super fun and super engaging way. And, but the content is important. So if people feel strongly that there are some things missing, and you figured out how to make a sticky, you can add some drivers of what what is going on in the world that's driving the rise of hate groups.
Yeah, I have to ask the question. Is there anyone, just to intervene for logistics, is anyone having a difficult time or super frustrated? We don't want to make you upset as you're trying to make this work. Is anyone having trouble and needs some, I have to ask a question?
Well, if this can be, you don't have to take a lot of time to bring me into this. I'm on the screen where I could add a sticky note, but I haven't been able to figure out who I am as an animal.
I don't think that
Gareth, just click on the little, what looks like a sticky note on the menu bar on the left.
Yeah, on here.
Just click on it with your mouse on the far left. And then it'll come up on your screen and you should be able to type on it.
But Marianne, how is this different than a driver?
How is what different than a driver?
The sticky note, like what are we, I don't see something with a driver.
Thank you, Gareth.
Well, these are all drivers. What we're saying is all of these different factors are contributing to the rise of hate groups and recruitment of youth, and all of these are factors, whether it's parents and family, youth culture itself, youth and peer groups, social media is a huge one, the hate groups themselves, having kids, other opportunities for recreation. These are all factors that would be considered. And when we're thinking about developing curriculum or support for teachers to address this in schools, these are all the factors that are at play. Fake news. Yeah, this is good. So some of them I'm having a hard time reading because they're small. Youth identity, belonging. Yeah, so that kind of fits with this one over here about youth culture.
Marianne, if I could jump in for a moment. I'm thinking that it looks like if there's no one else who's having trouble getting in, I wonder if we can just take now that time that we had planned for people to do what we're already in the process of doing without conversation, unless it's critical or necessary. Just read the board, add stickies, think about other drivers, and let's take the time now is 11:13. Let's take 10 minutes to do this and come back at 11:25. So take 10, and if you want to take another break in that period of time, if you need to step away from your computer, but let's take 10 minutes now, 12 minutes rather, at 11:25. Let's come back on together and talk about it. Marianne, is that all right with you?
Yeah, and my Jamboard has disappeared, so I'm not sure what happened.
The board went away.
It disappeared. So someone did something.
In a very meta turn, what has shown up is a lack of inclusion of diverse narratives.
No, you know what? I'm to blame for that. I pressed a button, it said clear, and everything went blank. So blame me.
Marianne, can you?
And I don't know what to do now.
Well, you know what? I don't think that's a disaster. Let's
undo
here and let's add drivers.
But I'll go back to my where I have it and.
Okay, and to bring it up again.
Drive also has a feature that you can revert to previous versions.
Yeah.
Can you do that for us, Kristen? Are you able to do it?
I don't have access to the document yet.
Oh.
I assume I'm going to be given access to it.
Sorry.
Or I couldn't find it in either of my emails, so I just.
Do you know how to revert? Can you tell Marianne how to revert?
I do. Let me just open Drive on my computer so that I can see what I'm even looking at here. So
can't Lloyd just press undo?
I'm
There's
hitting
a little arrow.
You'd think.
I'm looking this.
In the top left corner.
Nothing happened.
Okay, so you should be, you're looking for edit history is what you're going to be looking for. And it'll show version history.
Lloyd, I'm picking up. I don't have the Zoom screen in front of me, but when I do that return arrow, top left corner, it brings. Yeah, that might work. Doesn't do anything.
No.
Marianne, how are you doing there?
Yeah, no, I'm looking for, like, did try pushing the undo and it just went one sticky back. So,
Yeah, it doesn't.
and
More
I'm
than
gonna,
one.
yeah,
Okay,
so I went to
um,
my Google Drive to try and,
Found it. Is it there?
no,
Oh,
did you find it there, Linda?
I could see it on my screen. I just went into history in the, but I don't know how to get it on the main screen.
Okay, so when you open your version history,
Yeah,
you should be able to select which one you want to open.
and I see
Then
it.
you click the 3 little dots beside it and click restore this version.
there we go.
Yay.
Yay.
Okay, missing, it's missing all the ones that people added though.
Okay, well, I think that we can live with that. Let's still take, let's take till 11:30 and just play around with this, all right? And if you need to take a little break in the meanwhile, go take your break, but add stickies, add notes to the existing stickies and have some fun for 15 minutes.
And whatever you do, don't clear the screen.
Right, don't clear it. But we can always retrieve it. We've learned that. So thank you, Kristen. I'm so glad you're with us. All right, see you folks back here.
Can we introduce, I feel weird that I want to say hi to Alok. I don't know her and I just want to know who she is because I think that because I feel weird not saying hi to someone who's in my room.
Oh yeah, sorry, my apologies. I kind of introduced myself at the very beginning when like people were just filtering in, but I was like kind of shy to introduce myself again because you guys are such experts and stuff. But yeah, my name's Luke Fontaine Richardson, and I'm the co-director, I guess, and co-founder of Realize Radicalization. It's like a youth, I guess, organization to kind of combat and raise awareness about radicalization. And Dr. Ahmed's been kind of my mentor for the past couple of years and kind of introduced me to the field. And I've been following the project really patiently before it was even like fully announced and everything, just because I heard speculation. So when I was invited to just observe, I really wanted to take the opportunity to do it because it's a huge interest of mine. So thank you so much. And so far, everyone is amazing me with their knowledge and their insights. So thank you.
So happy to meet you. Sorry, I just, it just was tweaking my, so I was like, I want to know who this person is. I think she looks very interesting.
Maybe I shouldn't have said anything. I should have kept myself like a mystery and kind of just cultivated that, but thank you.
So Mark, if I just 30 seconds. So Alok and there are another 4 or 5 young fellows from our university. Some of them have already graduated, but they participated in an international competition. It's called Peer-to-Peer Adventure Program. So it's a global competition organized by an NGO for-profit based in US. But the whole program or competition is sponsored by Facebook itself. So in 2019, right, Alok, if I'm not wrong, we formed this small group and they participated with their ideas of countering radicalization to violence. And out of 430 entries, our group was 9th. Our submission was 9th. But yes, we couldn't go to Washington, but we were 9th. And this group actually, they sustained over these 3-4 years with smaller efforts. They went to a number of schools before the COVID hit, and they shared their ideas. They run a podcast, they run a webinar, and this group is hosted within my not-for-profit organization, Conflict and Resilience Research Institute. They have a fully functional website, and so if you have any interest, they'll be more than happy. Thank you so much.
Thanks for that. Sorry, Linda, for that
That's good.
tangent there.
Not at all.
I'll get to work now, and I'm so happy to hear about this.
Can we still talk to each other during this 10-minute of brainstorming? So I'm going to ask a question that may make me seem very out of touch with current thinking, but I'm going to ask it anyway. When we go to the document about terms and definitions, and it talks about radicalization, here's the statement that reasons behind this process of radicalization can be ideological, political, religious, social, economic, or personal. And then when I go to the Jamboard, okay, so from that list, and unless I'm missing it in the Jamboard, there's no reference to race. Is there a reason? I mean, I'm just going to ask, is there a reason for that? I know that there's a lot being written about the fact that race is a social construct.
Gareth, I'm going
But
to jump in. There's no reason for anything. This is just a real draft kind of beginning that Marianne had drafted a few big ideas, and I added a few thoughts here and there. We're just building. This is kind of the brainstorming piece.
Yeah. So
absolutely, wherever you think it fits, try to, if it works with the color, add it. If it doesn't, just add it anyway.
Okay. Well, I guess when I read through the document of terms and definitions, I was struck by its absence. So I just wondered whether somebody has a reflection on that for me.
A quick reflection, Gareth, a very interesting point that you brought forward in a couple of seminars, especially outside Canada. I actually had this question. One of the logics, so-called, academics, those who study extremism and all, they try to avoid race question, because then it goes into a different direction, like race war and all these things. And I'm talking about most of the discussions, literatures that came out pre-2018 time. But after 2018-19, we do see the race questions coming up when we are talking about extreme right movement, neo-Nazi movements, white supremacists. Now this word is very much there. But the literatures that we condensed for our group, somehow we relied onto the pre-19 literature. We did not touch much because we just wanted to know your views, because race is really sensitive, race and gender both. Thank you.
And I would say, if you want to add a sticky that talks about institutional racism, oppression, like, go for it. That's what we're doing right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Because when Lloyd talks about its relationship and its feeling included and so on, in some communities, race is very much a divider, right?
True.
And a marginalizing issue.
True.
Okay, I'll go see if I can make that work.
Fantastic. Marianne, do you, at some point, we need to save this one, right? As PDF, something?
Well, it saves automatically as long as we don't do anything to it.
But yeah, just to be on the safe side, I will just.
But you can also take a screenshot and you can copy it into like a Google document.
Save as image, right?
I'm wondering who just did the economic inequality. Is there a way to turn that one pink to match up with the one you just, who did that? Who was that?
It's already there. It's already there. So
who was it? Who just moved that when you went in?
I don't know. But it's already there.
Mark did that, and I didn't see it was already there. I don't really understand the colors.
Well, Mark, I was just curious, Mark, how you change the color.
Oh, you go to edit.
Okay.
You hover on it and you go to edit.
Oh, all right, thank you.
Little dots that appear.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know how to make myself an animal.
We don't know. Don't worry about that.
You just click on.
Click on the Marianne, I want to be an animal.
Lock yourself in the basement for 2 years and write a dissertation.
But Mark, we disagree. You came out in a very human form and shape. We see your spirit.
Yeah, there you go. My spirit, yeah. Maybe I'll just lock myself in the basement for 2 years and leave it at that.
And I'm sorry, I did not read the terms and definitions before I did this. So we do have to agree, use the language that the project is going to use. So.
And we'll get there eventually, Marianne.
Yeah.
So about another 5 minutes to do this, and last 5 minutes if you need to step away from your computer.
And
what I'm going to do to go get my tea. So I'm going away for 2 minutes. If anyone needs me, I'm not here.
And the definitions and terms that we compiled, folks, is just to have a standard, I would say, common way of discussion. And we can always deflect from these things. And those who, especially Dr. Sadi, is very much aware that these definitions are so complicated nowadays. there are multiple definitions, and agencies use one type, then researchers use another type, academics use another type, all this. So we just thought that a very basic framework, whatever this terms means, that's all.
Just sharing a thought of what gave me an idea. I asked myself the question, what is it that kids are experiencing that makes them feel marginalized? What kind of things are they exposed to? And I came up with a hidden curriculum in the classroom, the unspoken, the unsaid, if that promotes anything. What is it that would marginalize a student? What experience? If that prompts any last thoughts in your head for another sticky anywhere.
For me, Linda, and I work in that field with a lot of those marginalized students, we talk about that all the time. It's the fact that I don't see myself or someone that may look like me in any place in the building. And I also, some students talk to me about the fact that every time they want to pray, they have to walk miles to go back home, for example. There is no spaces for them as well in the building to even do that. And sometimes I end up finding them small, tiny offices that are used for printing and whatever. And people walk onto them when they are praying. And You know, they're asked all kind of questions and so on and so on. And, you know, so
have you written a sticky? Have you got that up there yet? Can you find it?
I wrote something around that, but I could do that. Yeah, sure.
Put it, please add that. All right, let's just do one more minute if you have any final thoughts.
You know, that conversation you just had makes, like, when I look at this, I'm concerned about the white, like the people that are involved in the convoy, the people that are feeling like they're conflating their privilege, their unacknowledged privilege with freedom. And they think that, you know, having to wear a mask is an infringement on their personal freedom. And I guess I'm focused more on the white supremacy aspect of this. And maybe that isn't all of what we're talking about with this. We're talking about radicalization of Muslim youth and other youth that are marginalized in Canada as well. And that's my bias, I guess. I'm more concerned about the white supremacists.
I think they're tied. I think they're connected.
Well, then fundamentalism is fundamentalism, right?
But I think that there's a lot of folks in that area, in these convoys, who feel threatened by efforts to recognize, by the efforts that Izzy says are needed, and he's right, are needed to create prayer rooms, prayer spaces, right? They see that as an existential threat to themselves. And I mean, I disagree fundamentally and wholeheartely, but I think that they're connected in a maybe that's the interesting thing about a project on radicalization, is that it looks at the processes as opposed to the individual groups
and the outcomes.
Yeah.
Look at the processes.
Yeah.
Of course, Mark, we talk about like spaces for smudging. I have lots of students who are Indigenous and they don't have that space as well. Meanwhile, every morning we acknowledge reconciliation and we talk about the harms that have been done and how we move forward. Is it just statements that we just echo within our buildings? But we forget that there is a concrete relationship between physical spaces and colonialism. And that impacts people. So what is that space and what is it telling us about who we are in the past, and what is it going to tell us about who we are in the future?
And I think I would like to add with Mark, whatever I have seen over these past years, especially last 2-3 years, this is exactly the problem, the perception of being threatened. And there are a number of things we share, we speak, and this is really coming into a very culmination now that you know, our white population, and for some reasons this perception is gaining ground. And just yesterday I was driving to my office and I saw a very large board. My office is very close to legislative building, so this placard, the write-up in the placard is, guess what, we are from the fringe community. Because over these past years, I mean, scholars and whatever policymakers in this area, we just keep branding them as fringe, you know, fringe groups, don't bother, you know, they are minorities, you know, ignore. But look what is the expression. And Mark is definitely right that this perception of being threatened, and identity-wise, right? I mean, the whole essence of white supremacist movement is identity. Because this identity is nobody's talking about. We are talking about other identities, especially countries like Europe and us, multicultural, and we talk so much about multiculturalism and promote officially and all these things. But what about the core identity of this of people here? And this is somehow it's getting around and around. And for your information, if some of you are aware, in Europe there is a whole movement. It's called identitarianism, and which in Germany, you see. The whole concept of this movement is identity. And this identitarianism has not gone away. It is right embedded in Germany, in France, in Netherlands. Yes, we have not seen in North America to that extent, but it is there right now.
Well, and if we go back 50 years to the height of the sort of Black Panther, Black Power movement, that was very much a claiming of identity as well. So, I mean, I think we have, in our discussion, ongoing discussion, we'll have to be conscious of the fact. I think we know that the primary pressure right now on countering the rise of radicalism, or radicalization, I should say, is we tend to think of white supremacy leading to that kind of violence, but there are any number of expressions of radicalization that has violence as its means. So.
Saad has his hand up.
Just to add to what Kausar and Garrett said, I think we need to be a little bit careful when we attach labels to groups, because group psychology is, as Kausar very well knows, the most potently lethal thing there is. And a very good example is one of the experiments that Henry Tajfel conducted back in 1970. Even a randomly assigned group identity with no ethnic, no previously defined identity markers, this amongst 15, 16-year-old school kids, it was so potent that one group was willing to take a loss so that the other group with a very randomly assigned identity would also suffer. And I think we need to kind of dig a little bit deeper, especially with these groups, i.e. in terms of what is it that's driving them. Dismissing them is, I think, a little dangerous.
And if I can build on what Dr. Saad had just said, I recently got in a conversation with a white gentleman, a white person who supported the Freedom Convoy. One of the slogans that he said to me was, as a white man in Canada today, I feel like I am public enemy number one. Now, we can unpack that anytime you want, but there is this atmosphere of fear of what it is. Like, as a white person here, for them it was like, everything I've known about myself as a white person, this notion of whiteness, of course, exists here, has either been challenged, slowly in their view has been erased, or been altered, if you will. So therefore they are holding on to, as Dr. Saad, of that identity base, and they will, and they are fighting to bring it back in whatever way they see fit. So to consider that, identity is a big piece of it, and so on. So one of the other things that, well, you come to Canada, they said to me, you come to Canada and you get to keep 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Why can't we as white people do the things that we want to do and who we are, practice who we are freely, and not be told we can't? Now, we can also get onto discussions of privilege and perceived privilege and inherited privilege and all of that, because simply that remark isn't accurate at all. I don't get to practice who I am in Canada freely. I wrote in my sticky note the illusion or the myth of multiculturalism in Canada, and we can go on. But those comments you hear and you walk away going, that's a huge idea. How do you work with that? How do you have conversations with someone who's so far on the right, and yet you want to stay, you want to keep that relationship going. You want to, have these dialogues. And sometimes I really feel short about finding a centerpiece to connect with in terms of these dialogues. I thought I'd share.
Thank you, Wizzy. And I would like to draw attention, and first of all, thank Tim. We talked about this earlier. Thank you, Tim, for sharing that really interesting video. I've only gotten 3/4 of the way through the first link. But if you haven't had a chance to see it, it really provides insight into what our last 2 commenters or 3 commenters have talked about, that sense of that the white male identity that's feeling threatened right now, that the interviewer of the documentary really goes deep into that topic. So if you can find a time to take a look at it, I think you'll find it very, very interesting. I'm going to limit the conversation now to these last 4 people who put their hands up, because we're going to move in to our next activity shortly. And may I ask you to keep your comments quite brief, if you would, try to keep them to about a minute or so, if you would. Marianne?
Well, I was also just wondering how much more time, because the other piece of this is that Google Drive. So, and we don't need to go there at all now, just so people understand that what we wanted to do then next is combine the stickies and have those be categories that you put into this Google document. And then you can click the link, and it'll take you to a document where you can actually list in more description of what do those drivers look like, what could be the neutralizers, etc. So that's where we were going with this. And in terms of this discussion, I guess I really think that we need to look critically now at issues like the identity politics that's really taken hold. We have to look critically at what people call cancel culture, and the reaction that like I even had a friend of mine whose son is in high school, and they were doing a unit on residential schools, and he came home feeling so guilty as a young white man. And she's works for the government, she's very educated, but and could respond to some extent, but she was even struggling of how to respond, and has lived in the North and supports Indigenous rights. And so when those, it's the way that is being taught somehow that is triggering this sense of guilt, and it's not okay to be white anymore. And even in a young person who's grown up in a family that talks about issues and so anyway, that's my comment, and I'll
Thank you, Marianne. Saad, try to keep it to 1 minute if you can. Mute.
Happens to all of us. I sort of forgot to add this earlier. When we talk about identity, especially vis-a-vis this so-called freedom convoy, it's not just white men. I unfortunately do tend to read the Daily Mail every evening. Provides some interesting stuff. And there was a piece which caught my eye about a group of Sikhs who were running a seva, which is basically a kitchen for the truckers at the convoy. Initially, I thought, all right, this is fake news. So I dug in much deeper. Turns out it wasn't. So it isn't just white, angry men. The stereotypes were there. A slight minority is also of people like myself, right, who belong to my group. And so that's why I think we do need to dig a little bit deeper.
Interesting, thank you. Michael, and then Tim.
Just a couple things. One, I find it interesting that we do label ourselves as a multicultural society, and that the symbols that this protest have taken on, and they've taken the Canadian flag, they take "Oh Canada," and it's sort of ironic in a way, because these are symbols of our diversity, and they're trying to make it their own. And it's like, really, if you want to be like in Canada and be racist, there are things you can take. Like I'm surprised we're not seeing more of the ensign flag. I'm surprised we're not hearing Maple Leaf Forever, but it's because people don't know that anymore. And it's so they're sort of trying to have to co-opt these symbols of multiculturalism. And like Trudeau, when he's like introduced the idea, he was saying like, who is the all Canadian boy? And I've posed that to my class, and they can't really tell me anything. Or if they do, it's very superficial. He drinks Tim Hortons. And it's like, well, yeah, because that's what we've created in this way. So I don't know if I agree that we're like, we definitely can find examples of us not being multicultural, but there is a bit of a foundation here that have created some unique problems for racists. Second thing, with history, it's a reckoning. We're at a time period right now where it's, how do we want to teach history? Is history about patriotism, or is it about facing the black eyes that have occurred? And maybe we should feel bad. And it's not bad because we did it, but our ancestors did something bad. And maybe it's not a bad thing to feel bad about it. And like, it's instilling a sense of empathy. And maybe we need to lean into it a little bit more. I don't know if education should just be about, feeling good all the time. Bad things have happened and bad things will happen. And we need to kind of accept that and lean into it a little bit in the hopes that it doesn't happen again.
Thank you. Tim?
Yeah, I guess I'm just thinking about, the comments with regards to the film and whatnot as well, and the comments hearing being shared today too about identities and whatnot. And, I was thinking just, as I was listening to everyone too, about things that, like Homi K. Baba had explained about hybridity spaces and identity spaces and what goes into those spaces and who and what's taking place in there as well. And one of the things I think that just I keep kind of coming back to is this whole idea that there's a whole contextualization going on here related to identities and these radicalized identities. I'm thinking about the Thoreau film a little bit too, and just how able the characters, or not the characters, but the people in that film were at one characterizing who they were and their identities and their roles as influencers of radicalization and extremism. And then also the takeaway there too is we're voicing elements of anxiousness and anxieties related to that, but there's people that are reveling in that type of process too. They're happily engaged in it. They're doing a work that they're feeling emotively happy and pleased with. Going and looking in the film too, I was thinking about there's a use of the ironic quite a bit in there too by those who are undergoing radicalization, and that irony and that assigning that qualifier of irony or humor to what they're doing brings about that positive emotive kind of element too, that I think is really important feedback loop that we have to acknowledge in some of this too, that's what's filling the void for that disenfranchisement sense, or whatever you want to call it too, right? Which I think is, for me, the striking part of how, Dr. Saad said it too, those psychological elements too, and that's why I put that piece up there with the neuroscience with regards to this too. What's actually happening in the laying down of these neurons and these neural pathways and these ways of thinking too. So, like I'm thinking about the critical thinking. I'm thinking about the literacy elements in here, like what type of language and literacy are people thinking and speaking with, and that neuroscience kind of aspect of how are these pathways grooming, and then how is that extending beyond and building and growing these communities, right? And what is it doing in these contextualizations of these spaces, right? Thoreau's mind space was very much different from, say, Baked Alaska space, or the other man that he visited too. But you did find in that film too, when Thoreau made one comment when he was at the home of one of the subjects of the documentary, he was ejected from there too, and you see those constrictions of those identity spaces too, and how they're fortified and built up as well. So I think that's where I'm kind of thinking more and more about this. And I mentioned, even in my bio, this idea of the being, the doing, and the becoming, right? We're entering into, a process right now where, as a toolkit, I think these are the things too that I think the teachers need to know about, is how does this be, how does it do, and, how does it become? So I think that's the point that I've, going to leave with you right now. But thanks.
Thank you, Tim. I'm reminded of those 4 UNESCO pillars of learning: learning to do, learning to know, learning to be, and learning to live together. Very, very important point. All right, in wrapping this up, I may turn to, thank you, Linda, for the heart, to Marianne as well. We'll invite people to continue adding to that document, to go to the Google Docs, as Marianne suggested earlier. Are there any last questions about that? And is that your own time? I know that all of you are very, very busy, but if you find a moment before the next meeting or in the next short while before it falls off the mindset, take 10 or 15 minutes and go in and do some additions to it. And what we'll do before the next meeting is compile that and send it back to you, and you can have a hard copy of it. Before we move into our next activity, which is the terms and definitions, I'm going to just turn it over to Kauser for 5 minutes, who I delayed from an earlier point in the agenda. Kauser, take it away.
Thank you so much. Once again, I just to kind of share some of the project activities, and I need and we need your direct help in doing so. So today, my agenda is very I would say focused, and which is social media and presence in the media sphere. So it is built in our main project idea right from the beginning. And I strongly believe a believer of communication and free flow of information. So what we have done already, I'm going to share with you. And I'm very grateful today just to acknowledge team's help. Team has kind of responded to my email, and we are going to sit after we finish today's session with him particularly. And so first idea is that we need a social media presence of our group and our activities. And as I said, it is built in our project. We have already told that. So within these social media tools, we have a couple of things. So platform-wise, we'll have a functional website, which will remain with us as a repository of knowledge and exchange and other stuffs. So the website is already built, initially built, and that needs all of your inputs. Team, I and my student group, we are going to introduce briefly, but it is absolutely your input driven. So whatever you think that we should take it out, we will. Whatever you want to include, we will. So that is one aspect, that our central identity or our central activities and dissemination is our website. So here is our initial website, as I said always, and we are going to share with you. So we are calling it ERIM, Extremism and Radicalization to Violence Prevention in Manitoba. So this is our logo. Our basic slogan is Engage, Educate, Prevent. Thanks to Linda and our core team to come up with a lot of brainstorming. So this is how it looks like. It is still in the what you call development phase. We have not uploaded, and you will not be able to access right today, but within 2 days or so, I will notify you that it is live. So it is still in the air. So this is our homepage, what we are showing now. So this is a public safety funded project. We have to declare, of course. And here I would like to add the treaty acknowledgement, because this whole our activities is based on our treaty territory. So I will add that one here. So and we just have three basic things: educate, engage, and prevent. So brief description here, and once we click the learn more, it will open up other spaces. In this section, what I am planning to do, provided my student group, of course, they are always intellectual than I am. So with their help and all, we are going to kind of plot what we call the extremist events that happens in Canada. It will have larger framework like hate activities, extreme, all these events. For last, I think 5-6 years, we'll curate the data and we'll put up a GIS map. So I have this back in mind, not yet done. Something very similar to GTD, Global Terrorism Database. They have a map, something like that, similar I'm planning to do. In this section, we'll have latest news, and please suggest what you want to add. I just added a couple of things that I thought people follow. Then, of course, support our work, our priorities, and blog. So traditionally, blog is very popular to exchange information, and it's just Southeast immigrant. This is not going to be there, but I'm trying to fill it out with some proper news. Then there will be a mailing list. Those who subscribe, they will get a mailing list. of course, and at the bottom you have all these standard things. So this is what looks like our web page now, and we are gradually we're going to develop all these pages as we move forward. So this is first aspect. Please, when I put it up in live mode, please send us your inputs, your feedback, which will be super appreciated. So next item is Twitter. So Twitter is, I am a big fan of Twitter, and so is Kristen, who is helping us in this part. So Twitter reaches quickly, draws, and it's a very small, 150 words, so you can express yourself. So again, the Twitter feed is ready, account is ready, but possibly today and the next couple of days, we're going to develop some policy how to use it, because the content that we put up in Twitter and all these things, these would be viewed by hundreds maybe in the next couple of years. So we need some policy regarding sharing information. Then we have a Facebook page created, which is again a part of our effort. So this is our what you call Facebook page, and I'm going to add 2 editors today, 2 to 3 editors, those who will moderate the content, but the page is up and running, and which we'll share in various platforms. So these 3 platforms are almost ready, 90% I would say, and we are going to need your constant feedback. Just write to us what you want to see, if you have some idea and all these things. And second thing that I would like to share is that I'm suggesting that we build a small subgroup, and already Tim and we are talking, but I have already invited my phenomenal student Kristen, you have heard, so she is volunteering this here, and also we are going to tap Aluk's group, because Aluk's group are also very much tech savvy. So we'll form a subgroup, and we will be responsible for our social media feeds and development and other stuffs. So you can direct your questions, suggestions to us, this small subgroup, and then we'll decide how we want to move forward. Thank you very much, Linda.
Thank you, Counselor. That was really a lot of information quickly, but really clear, and that website's looking great. I'm looking forward to feedback on that as well. All right, we're going to move into our next piece, which is the terms and definitions. And we're going to try breakout groups on this so that we can have some small group conversation and then come back for a large group conversation. And the point of this, you received it last Friday. I hope you had a chance to look at it. There were 3 pages of some kind of big, broad ideas. These are not original definitions. Connie and Kauser have kind of collated ideas from a variety of sources. They're not even sourced to any great degree on the paper that you were looking at. But it's just to get our thinking and to try to get us to the same page of what some of those big terms are. So when we break out into our groups, which Kauser is going to accommodate in a moment, I want you just to, for about 10 minutes in your small group, there'll be, because of some absences, Lloyd's had to step away, Larry's away today, and Greg is away. Your group might just be 2 people, or it might be 4 people. Just take 10 minutes, and I want you to just try these on for size. How do they fit? How do they feel? Is there anything that really jumps out at you? Just a big general feedback is what we're asking for. And would you just choose one of you to report back, and we'll give a few minutes from each group. There'll be 4 groups, a few minutes from each group just tell us what you think about the terms and definitions. Kauser, I'll turn it over to you to negotiate the breakout groups.
Perfect. So just give me just less than 1 minute. I am quickly assigning. Linda has done her homework. There are 4 groups, but some of our participants are not there, but just kindly hang on with me. So group 1, then 2, and then myself. Okay, done. Group 2.
Have to do it this way because it was uncertain. If we had planned this in advance, we would have been tied directly to a time and a breakout. And so we thought this would give us more flexibility to do it on the fly. So thank you for your patience as Kauser breaks us out. And then it's going to happen automatically. Can you set the timer for 10 minutes, Kauser?
Yes, yes.
Or however
yes.
that will bring us back in?
Greg is not here, right?
No.
Okay. Connie. And Tanya is gone, right? Okay. Okay.
While Causer sets up the groups, our task is to review the definitions and provide feedback on them.
Yeah, in a really general sense.
Okay.
How do they sound? I mean, this is our first crack at putting something in front of you that might eventually become our definitions, might be in our glossary, might become our overarching terms, big ideas, thinking back to Connie's presentation, essential ideas. So how do they feel? Try them on for size. I can't be more generic and general than that. You know, are we way off base? Do they make, you know where I'm at. Thanks, Mark. Unless anyone else has a question. Oh, you ready?
So, yeah, and okay.
So you've been invited to join. Please go ahead.
My house, I guess they got insulated, and they're just so freezing. I just won't even go there. And my kitchen, I don't think the windows are insulated, so it's like an ice box in there, which I'm obviously not in the kitchen.
And sorry, folks, Mark, apology, Marianne as well. I have to tell one thing about Alok. Okay, this is not the agenda, but she's our first indigenous woman who who received a very prestigious scholarship from Bangladesh, and she's traveling to Bangladesh in early May to study peace and reconciliation process after the 1997 peace treaty. So, and she has been nominated from Southern Chief Organization where she belongs to. So, she's outstanding.
Thank you, sir. You're going to give me a big head. By the end of these sessions, I'll just have such an ego. Thank you so much.
Well, I have to be honest. My question was perhaps a little disingenuous because I thought I'd heard your name before, and I thought I'd heard it as in tones of awe, and so I was kind of like, I think that's a pretty unique name. I know I'm from Selkirk. I know the Fontaine family.
Yeah, my family is huge. Everyone knows my family. My grandpa's Phil Fontaine, the big guy. Everyone knows them. Everyone knows my family. It's very as soon as you see Fontaine, I bet you I'm related to them. And I don't know who's been speaking about me in odd tones. It's probably just been Dr. Kauser, but
I keep my sources completely. I protect my sources. Anyway, I'm really happy that you're part of this.
Thank you, appreciate
Who are your parents, Alok?
My parents are Maya Fontaine and Kevin Scott Richardson. I guess most people know me because of my grandpa, I guess, because he was the Grand Chief, I guess. That's how most people know me. I'm lucky I just get that name recognition. I kind of just had an easy in with everything just because of my grandpa and everyone knowing who he is. So yeah, from Sagin. So shout out Sagin First Nation. If anyone knows anyone from there, yeah, that's my yes, there's a lot of us in Winnipeg. It's overcrowding. It's practically like a second reserve. So yeah.
Marianne, so we are at your disposal. I mean, I am at your disposal. Go ahead. Yeah.
So is this, but I thought this breakout group we were talking about the terms and the definitions.
Yeah.
I'm probably not the best person to go first on this.
No, I mean, so okay. The idea is, as I was trying to explain, that just to bring some common understanding of the terms available, and there are a lot of ambiguities and definitional issues with terming something like radicalization. Is it something, radicalism is not bad because many innovation happen because of radical thinkings. All these things come into the discussion. So, but anyway, we tried to standardize something for our project that is up there in the Google Drive. And also what I did is, and I didn't, I missed that in the moving forward within this year, I plan to design an app, And as Marian rightly said, that how do you communicate? So my broad idea is that we are going to develop this app in both platforms, Android and Apple, and so that you can use it in terms of two purposes. First, to communicate with us. For example, if you need to know the explanation of some symbols or tattoos or some language somewhere, then you can connect with our central team seeking explanation, because you don't have time to go back and all these things. So we'll give you a quick response that this means this. And second thing is, if you want to draw our attention to something that you want to exclude or include or share information discreetly, quickly, then you can do it as an educator. But this app maybe will be or can be used by the other bodies. Let's see how it goes. But app is coming in. This is our one of the plans that through this app we can, because website is there, we understand Facebook is there, but again, I mean, app possibly is the quickest way to communicate. So what we are doing is that we are keeping these definitions and all this at this point in time in Google, but when app is developed, we are going to put it there also, so that if you really want to speak something and you need a quick, authentic and legitimate definition of something, you can go back to that glossary that we have prepared. And simultaneously, I've also developed a library of symbols and explanations, because it is enormous. And as Mark rightly mentioned, that whole this identity things is coming up so much now within these past 3 weeks. Even for your information, I have compiled, I think, around 22 flags that came up in the protest in this last weeks, 22 and explanations. And you'll be surprised how innovative these flags are and their meanings, their interpretations. So these symbols, which mostly I compiled from ADL and SPLC, Anti-Defamation and Southern Poverty Law Center, but also from some Canadian sources. So these are coming as a library. So you have direct access to those libraries through your app later on, but now through the website and all these things. So and definition wise, feel free if you do not agree. That is what we expect, that let us know which part you think that we should not use consistently, or is creating confusion for this and all. Because at the end of the day, we think after 2 years, when we are going into the workshop mode, because our consultation will be over and we will be ready with the toolkit, then you will encounter a lot of discussions in the workshop, talking to other educators, and of course down the road with your students, those will not agree with the definitions. So they will say that this is, and so this is why we are trying to build this knowledge through you. And one final point, which I will speak with all of our broader group today, but we are also bringing experts in a kind of guest lecture session, so that you can listen directly from them, their experiences and their stories and their resources. So that is happening next time we have, but it will be a very sustained one. It's not that only 1 or 2 will be. I'm trying to gather globally, so that all of them know about us, what we are doing. And believe me, given my humble experience, we are doing a very unique thing. It is never tried anywhere, never. And so this is what my intention is, that to bring people from outside, listen to us, and cross referencing and all. So I'll end here.
Kauser, I'm hesitant in some ways, because I'm not sure if you're going to like what I'm going to say, because I'm very concerned about having a website that catalogs the symbols and those things in a way that could become a way of promoting it. Because if I say to you, don't think of a purple elephant, what do you think about? So if we're going to put the emphasis on not radicalizing, we're talking about radicalizing. So I think the conversation we were having earlier about identity and teaching peace, teaching conflict resolution, teaching about inclusion and real compassion and it's not like an airy-fairy thing, and that's why I brought up the passing of Thich Nhat Hanh. Like, Thich Nhat Hanh developed a whole branch of Zen Buddhism that is engaged Buddhism, which is how do you be an activist? How do you sit in the fire and not react? How do you be a real peace activist where you are able to engage with someone who is angry and disarm their anger and speak in a way that is going to have them feel your compassion and your empathy and your curiosity to understand them. So I'm a little bit concerned what you see on the website about, you know, the website is going to try and track all these incidents. Well, that's like a scorecard for the other, you know, the other team.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And we can discuss further, but these symbols and this library are already available in the website though, because ADL and others, but they're not comprehensive. And it is already available. You can just Google and you will find whole list of, you know, explanations. And these are all public knowledge though. I mean, we are not, but what I'm trying to do is help our educators to get hold of those things in one place, because problem is there are a little variation in the explanations. So we will definitely, Marian, I'll talk to you personally if required, and we'll see what is the best way. So did she say 10 minutes? Mark?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
So we're out of time now.
Oh, I was going to make a comment, but never mind. It's okay.
No, go for it.
Go.
I was just going to talk about, a while back, I just finished this book called Extremism, very to the point, by Jam Berger. And he talks about the creation of the in and out group, which is something I didn't see in the terms and definitions. And I think is a huge component of radicalization, the idea that we're this group, there's this group that's privileged and this group that's disadvantaged, and I belong to this and you don't belong to this. And I think the creation of binary identities is something that really should be touched on, because it's a huge part of radicalization. So
send me an email. Very important point. Send me an email. Mark, do you have any final thoughts?
Just one thought. I remember many years ago, Winnipeg School Division developed an Indigenous literatures unit, and the beginning of it had some key definitions that were like so it was like prejudice, discrimination, racism, and what it did was it showed the progression of ideas and clarified ideas so that you wouldn't conflate them. Like a prejudice is an individually held thing. Discrimination is an action based on that prejudice. Racism is discrimination based on race, racial stereotypes, right? And so I think with our definitions, if we can kind of show how, you know, extremism is one thing, radicalization leads to extremism, that sort of almost like a process thing. So a clarification.
Understood.
Yeah.
Very well point taken.
The one other thing is violence is woven into all of this. And so I wonder if it might be worthwhile to indicate the different kinds of violence. So, you know, direct violence, structural violence,
structural violence. Excellent. Excellent.
But that's, I mean, I think this is a good work in progress, and yeah.
Thank you so much. So let's leave the room and go back out to our main room. Thank you.
Can I just add one more thing?
Yes, Marian, go ahead.
Just in that, like, I really like what Mark is saying about expanding on some of those. And I have some really good infographics that diagram some of these things. And I think we have to talk about the opposite. We have to talk about how things de-escalate, like how de-escalate and go in the other direction, and that there is that continuum of violence. And the other thing is, I think we have to talk about oppression, and we have to talk about privilege, and the sort of bully, the idea of the victim bully, the person who feels that they have been bullied and harmed, and how they act that out. So I talk about the cracking the code of trauma, and how people respond to trauma can be, they can become aggressors, or they can become victims and bystanders, or they can become upstanders, right?
True.
So maybe some of those kinds of.
Excellent. So, Marian, if I may request, if you kindly, on behalf of our group, if you kindly summarize.
Oh boy. Okay, I did take some notes.
Thank you. So I'm leaving the group now, our group now. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, he's going to all the groups?
Yeah, we are going back to all the groups.
Oh, okay, okay. We're all leaving.
No, don't leave. Don't.
Oh.
Just us here.
I thought I was going back into the mainstream group, and then it turns
We
out
are.
I'm you guys again. Not
We
the
are
best.
back in the main group. We just not many people. Hey, look, do you know Dan Fontaine? He worked with Parks Canada.
I'm not sure. My mom would know. They know literally every fontaine in the city. Me, I'm just like a young sprout. I don't know as many people,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But yes, there's many. I'm sure he's from Seguin, right?
He is. Yeah, he is. But I know it's a huge family. So
Yes. Oh
yeah.
my God. I don't even like, my mom has 70 first cousins for.
Yeah.
So it's very, very extensive. It's very busy. Me, I don't have that many first cousins. So I kind of feel left out. But yeah, you're from Selkirk, eh?
Yeah.
Nice, nice, nice. I like your blanket, by the way.
It was a gift. Yeah, it was a gift from some folks in the community when I finished my PhD. It was very nice. Yeah. Yeah, I've always wanted one, and it's not the kind of thing you ask for, right?
No,
when it materialized, I was just like, oh wow.
No, it's so beautiful, and like such a big offering when you give somebody a star blanket. So that is very cool that you have that. Yeah. I have one blanket, and I'm holding on to it for dear life. So
yeah.
Hopefully.
The only problem with it is like I want it here as the background. I feel good about it, but every time I get into a new group, I feel like I need to let everyone know I'm white. Like, I'm not trying to claim an identity here. It's just this is like...
No, it's all good, honestly. Like if it's given as a gift or anything, I don't think anyone would take it the wrong way.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone.
Mark with the disclaimer. Thank you. Go ahead, Linda.
Yeah. I hope that wasn't a huge exercise in frustration for people, because we asked you to look at a lot of big ideas in a short amount of time. But and let me just reiterate that the point of this is just first feel, try it on. I've already in my own mind recorded some really good big ideas that will collate into our next draft of what our definitions are going to be in some of our terms. So let's go to our breakout group reporters, and I'll just start with Michael because I know who you are and that you're reporting for our group 4. So we're going to start with group 4. Michael, some of the big ideas that you shared. I think you're muted.
Yep. I'm just gonna, it's on a Word document, so I'll be speaking, but if the camera looks weird, that's why. So a few issues that came up immediately were some of the terminology being used and like sort of not really defining like what is the norm, what is mainstream, like what do these terms mean? Replacing the concept of national security with public safety instead. With violent extremism, the definitions seem to be a closed list of examples. In the definition of radicalization, it's a process, and how do individuals radicalize towards group radicalization? And there are steps involved, and that probably should be included in a definition. And then how we use the terms as well, like when do we use radical versus radicalization? Because I believe Gareth pointed out, like often teachers like to use the ideas of radicals. We like to push the boundaries with that. So like that, but that is not radicalization. That's just like looking at someone who's on the fringe potentially. Overall, we sort of saw that the RCMP definition was problematic for various reasons. There was a lack of diversity in radicalization. And if you sort of, I guess there are some studies there showing that they tend to be from the upper middle class. Then the idea of where is the line between ideas and actions? And like, like where does one go from radical to radicalized? And how would teachers know that? How are we able to see that? So I guess like Kevin's example, like a student saying that Trudeau should be hung versus going and hanging Trudeau, I guess would be sort of that idea. And then sort of where can this come from? Lack of stories in the curriculum, people not seeing themselves in the curriculum. There's no attachment. There's no, they're not learning about people that look like them. And it was also the idea also that there should probably be the idea in radicalization that of community building, that it's often people that are looking for a group, they're looking for acceptance and finding it amongst a group of radicals. And that's one thing that I've sort of in learning about these white supremacy groups, they're incredibly accepting of people. And so like I can't remember what I was watching, but they were talking about people on the spectrum, of the autistic spectrum, and being incredibly welcoming to them and accepting them for who they are and bringing them into the fold because well, they want numbers. And so, and in other parts of society, they would not be treated that way. So it's interesting, just how it's almost an oxymoron, but accepting white supremacy group. But yeah. That's all I got.
Thank you. Can we just jump back to group one? I'm not sure who your reporter is. That's the Mark.
Marian.
Drafted to do that. So our group was Mark, Kosser, Aluk, and myself. And we actually started off with Kosser giving a bit more background on the website, which was helpful, and understanding sort of the different components of the website and that. And then we actually looked at the list, and we didn't comment so much on what is on the definition and terms list, but we talked about what's missing. And Mark talked a lot about trying to define more about prejudice and discrimination and racism and the difference between those in a continuum of violence, or the different types of violence. And we also had some discussion about oppression and understanding oppression and privilege and people's sense of victimization or privilege, or being a bystander or being an upstander or upstanding. And then we had a little bit of discussion about what others have talked about and using the term radicalization, because as a feminist, being a radical feminist is actually a good thing. And, you know, the world that I come from, you know, people see themselves as politically radicalized on the left, I guess, and that's not necessarily seen as extremism in the same way as sort of a white supremacist kind of extremism or other things that we're talking about. And then I guess I brought to the table just this whole notion of, especially when we're putting things on websites and on social media, how the intention of having things be used to educate, to prevent, actually can get turned to promote. And just the idea of teaching peace and teaching conflict resolution, and keep talking more about how we de-escalate and building that skill set that we've been talking about, to be empathetic and compassionate. And, you know, the idea of that there is kind of a unity consciousness where we're not so concerned about what's on people's outsides, but we're more interested on their character and their values and their, you know, than what they look like. And so those are some of the things that we talked about.
Great. I love how diverse those two conversations were and how they filled in some gaps in two different ways. Thank you. Group two, Tim, Isadine, Linda, Connor.
Okay, I'll go Tim, if that's okay, and we can share our thoughts. We have similar thoughts to some of the things that have been said. We looked at there in the text. I'll read some of the things that are outlined. It says some definitions explicitly note that radical views are not a problem in themselves, but become a threat to national security when such views are put into violent action. Now, I don't know, we didn't agree with this notion entirely. We do agree that violent views, when organized, mobilized, and become popular, become threatening and become dangerous, yes. But on their own, they're also harmful. And here we have to understand and work with the definition harmful or harm, and how do marginalized communities also see that definition and how they experience that definition. So I think in that regard, language is very important to consider. Another thing, underneath that, the mention of the RCMP, and of course this has been mentioned, but I think to examine the RCMP's position here and reference and to think historically and to consider how the RCMP in this country have been, when we think of indigenous people and their fight to keep their land and to protect their lands, RCMP is a unit that is associated with removing them of their land and oppressing them and so on and so on. And the recent convoy that took place definitely had RCMP officers in it and so on and so on. So we are aware of this, and we want to challenge the writers of this to think about that positionality and to also consider maybe other organizations, grassroots organizations that do this work to back these definitions up and to give it more of a legitimacy, if you will, more of a backbone from the ground up, rather than from an RCMP point of view as well. And this is, of course, just within 10 minutes that what we thought about. So, but Timothy, has another point that we talked as well.
I think that was at the point we were talking about the nature of the definitions themselves and the wording that had to be, I suppose, determined so that we have common language and whatnot to share and discuss in relation to the building of the educational opportunities and the teaching elements and I guess like the discourse communities that people enter into. I'm thinking as well, coming away with the idea that some of this relates to, a toolkit of sorts for teachers to utilize, but laying out those foundations that we can, I suppose, have anchorage to as we, move forward in the building of this and understanding processes as well and goals and objectives too.
Sorry, I'll come to you in a second, Mark. Can you just to clarify, Tim, I'm not sure concretely what you mean. Can you be a little more concrete with that?
I just think there's such a variety. We were looking at the variety of terminology and definitions and points of view and different discourse communities that had contributed to that collection of contexts and words and understandings, right? There's a multiplicity of understandings that are on that page too, right? So moving forward, having the unpacking that we need to do in order to share in the understanding that we're moving towards here.
And yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Linda, Mark has his hand up in case you didn't see.
I think I was actually wondering kind of what Tim was wondering, like if we're looking, there's two approaches we could take. One is to be a storehouse or index or bibliography of definitions related to these concepts. The other is to come up with our own definition. And I mean, like there are experts in these fields who could very well do that. If it wasn't for having like Saad and Causer, well, and I guess Izzy's also in Peace and Conflict there, I would say I would hesitate to offer a definitive definition, but we do have the experts
in the room. But I guess that was one of my dilemmas, is like, are we going to create sort of like, here's three definitions from different perspectives on what radicalization means? Or are we going to say, for the purposes of this toolkit, this is what we mean when we say? So that's my question.
I think you can do both, Mark. I think that depending on how we organize this, it doesn't have to be either or, it can be and that, but I think we have to have our own definition. People have to know what's driving us, where we're coming from. But I think we talked in our group how helpful it would be to see that RCMP definition, to see how violence centered it is, and how they're labeling anyone who's a radical as a radical, not a good thing. So I think both those things can happen, and it's a way of organizing it that isn't distracting. So here's our definition. If you want to see more, they're over here, right? It's just being well organized.
Thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, I see lots of nodding. Good. Tim? Are you adding something, or that?
Yeah, sure. And I think that point is important too, because it did come up earlier today too, that, and just briefly, just a few moments ago too, and I think maybe it was Michael that mentioned this too, is that there's others that would take a program like this or a toolkit like this and weaponize the information too, right? Or create the antithesis for it pretty fast as well. So I think it's that idea of how to buttress for those type of not even potentialities, those are going to be the realities of this work, right? It's going to be challenged pretty hard right away. So
Good, thank you. Marianne, quick comment before we go to our next group.
Yeah, that's what I was really getting at, is the way that this is going to be weaponized. And we're seeing that with code of conducts. We're seeing that with policies around anti-harassment, that they are being weaponized every day all over the place. And I really think we have to focus on, especially on the prevention side with the majority of kids, it's the principle of change in addressing these kind of realities is we need to focus on what we're for more than what we're against. And we need to be for peace, to explain, and especially with youth, so that they have a positive group and positive things to identify with as they figure out who they are. And to really be careful about giving energy and time to all of these other hateful things.
But I do have to remind the group that our grant has been given to us from federal safety, public safety, on countering radicalization to violence. So we cannot, we have to find a way to do that in a way that is humane, as Marianne has talked about too. So let's keep those things in balance. Let's move to group 3.
I can speak on behalf of group 3. So we talked about the definitions as kind of a tool as opposed to what the content of them is itself. We first considered the fact that these definitions are very long, and even from our educated standpoints, they're slightly unapproachable. So we thought maybe it would be smart for us to have several versions of these definitions, where we have one that we use for our own uses. We have another that we pass on to teachers, and then we would have even potentially a third, even more specific baseline definition to pass on to students as well, if the teachers see fit. And the idea there being that teachers should have a little bit more than students if that's something that they're wanting to be able to find. So that would give us that kind of tiered situation where we can pass on information in sections, essentially. I think it was Kevin also had the fantastic idea, or at least I think it's a fantastic idea, of making some sort of graphic with these definitions, perhaps a flow chart, or I think Connie suggested a circular type of thing, where these definitions, we would be able to connect them to each other and give them space as related to each other in terms of the extremism and the violent extremism and the radicalization, and kind of giving those definitions relations, which would, I think, help with the understanding of them as well. Not sure, Connie or Kevin, if I'm missing something. I'm pretty sure I am missing something. If either of you want to jump in.
I think just the only other thing that we kind of talked a little bit about is there a way to, and maybe it's not in the definitions, maybe it's somewhere else, but can we center this in some of the pedagogical language, like, Connie and I were talking about geographic or historical thinking concepts, and is there a way to center some of this within that language would be another question. But yeah, a graphic representation I think would be a huge help. And something that, something that's ready-made for kids, like that I could photocopy and say, here's a starting point, but then something for me, something that is for us is, yeah. Thanks, Kristen.
Kristen, do you have
sorry.
any? No, Kristen, do you have any time to throw something together of what you're envisioning, a graphic of what you're envisioning? Just,
Yeah, it wasn't actually my idea, so maybe Kevin could draft something there.
Okay.
I'm not a teacher, and I commend you all for being teachers, but I could never. So I'll leave the material creation to you guys.
And my mistake, I was seeing you as the reporter, as the generator.
No.
So Kevin, do you have just a pencil and paper, take a screenshot of it or a set of photograph and just share it around? We need to see what you're thinking, what's in your head. Can you do that in the next while?
Yeah, absolutely. Give me 5 minutes.
Oh, even better. Perfect.
I will also, sorry, just one more quick thing that we had come up in our session was maybe that some of these definitions, we need even smaller definitions in terms of like defining national security, if we're going to use that term. I think somebody else maybe brought that up. I assume Professor Ahmed had a lot to do with the writing of these definitions. I got that kind of feeling from being in your classes that this was a kind of fourth year level political science kind of definition. So I think maybe we would need to just come out with some, more baseline first year political science definitions. Might be helpful for some people.
No problem, Kristen.
Like the math teacher, for example, not that they're gonna, want to necessarily pick that up, but they may not have a definition of national security. So
fantastic.
Things like that may help.
Excellent observation, but guilty as charged. But our initial thought was that we just would like to share with you what we have now, because the definition of national security coming from security establishment is one way, and other organizations or private citizen is another way. So there are two ways of, as you all see. So we just shared what we have officially, for example, RCMP's definition, because we need to understand, because RCMP is the lead agency in the country which deals directly with these issues. So our thought is here, and now we have heard all of you, and now we are going to think whether we come up with our own definition of national security. Thank you, Kristen, once again.
Thank you for that clarification, Councillor. One of the things that we struggle with is that what we need doesn't exist. And so, Kristen, your observation and your suggestions well taken. That's what we're about to do and will do in the next short while. That we need to, and you know that many of us have gone through this very process, but on different topics in developing curriculum where we, if you're preparing things for a grade 12 global issues classroom, you're using almost academic language for much of the way, and kids are able to read and access that. But if this is for grade 7 students or grade 6 students or the teachers of elementary kids, we find a way to balance that, and we'll tailor it according to the audience, and recognizing our audience will span ultimately kindergarten to grade 12 and into the community. So that we're very, very conscious when we work in education of having to speak to all those different audiences in the voices and language that they all understand, all at the same time being accurate and coherent and non-exclusionary and non-marginalizing, on all those things. Everyone knows that we have so many challenges to do this well and to do it right. But I'm confident with the people who are at the table, we've got the right people to keep their eye on what we're doing and say, no, we need to do this. So thank you. And I'm so glad to have Kristen and Azuk, who are here to bring that youth voice too. So thank you. Connie, you have a question? Did I see your hand up, or were you just waving at a fly?
Yeah, no, I just want to say one thing quickly. I want to thank Kristen and Kevin for, I was in their group. One other thing we talked about real quickly was the importance of providing definitions so people don't go on a Google expedition, because type in violent extremism from your school computer and find out where you're going. So we talked about literally the importance of having one so people don't go down the Google rabbit hole. And I think Kevin's hand is up too now.
Okay, I just threw something together really quickly that I was sort of envisioning in my head, and I might be totally off base. The other thing I said in our group was that I don't feel like I'm the qualified voice to, discuss the content of these definitions. That's not my training, but just from my teacher's perspective, I think I can share my screen. Nope. Kauser, can you allow me, please?
You are ready, Kevin.
Perfect. So this is just what I had in my head, something like this. How they all interrelate, and you could change the arrows. And I don't even know if that, like I said, it's not my training, but that's when I was looking at these definitions, I was looking at a way they all relate, and is there a graphic representation of some kind? So that's what I was thinking.
Excellent, thank you. And thank you for doing that so quickly. Wow. And Kevin, not to worry about, you're not the expert. Well, you are the expert on some things. I already, in my breakout group, Saad was with us, and I got a sense that he's had a lot of background on this. And so we'll be looking to each of you for your different expertises. Kevin, yours just might be, how will Saad's definition, if he produces something for us, how does that work for you as a high school teacher? That we all have something to contribute, and it's not always the same thing. So remember that you've been chosen for your special skills, and they're not all the same, each one of you. I think we're going to bring this to a close now. Our next step then, Connie, I hope you are taking good notes, and if not, we have this recorded. I've got lots of notes too. I'd like to suggest our next step is going to be one of the next steps, which is our final agenda item, is we'll pull together some of your feedback and just do a second draft. That was a very rough, pull together first draft of big terms ideas. We'll pull together a second draft and get some of your feedback on have we solved some of those problems? What other problems still remain? So that will be one of the tasks. And Connie, will look to you to pull some of those you and working with Kauser, and maybe we'll draw you inside and Izzy, whoever we think can contribute to some of the refining. I don't think we want the whole group drawn into refining at this early point, but we'll figure that out, and we'll see we may tap on your shoulder to help us refine before the next meeting. Okay? Yes? Good. Kauser, did you have anything else before we move into the big idea of next steps?
No, nothing much. I spoke briefly with our group, breakout group, but just to share with the larger group is that, Marian's concern is that if we put up these things in the website, then, there is a chance of, we spoke about weaponizing our ideas or definitions. So that concern is well taken. Nonetheless, these symbols, particularly the symbols and its explanations are actually available everywhere. If you go to ADL site or SPLC, and there's another group, I spent a month with them in the US, virtually, of course, Western State Center, WSC. So they ran a whole workshop in last summer. They have also, so my suggestion is that we just keep an inventory, and now we can later on decide where to put it. But the bigger idea is in this project is definitely an app that we are going to develop. And this app is going to ease our communication quite a bit. So we can design the app. Again, we'll get back to you with your ideas in the designing part of the app and who to access. But fundamentally, my idea, Linda and I, our both ideas were that we would like you educators to have a very quick response about something that you are trying to find an answer to without going to or resorting to Google. So it is about you. So about you means, of course, you are the core group in our project, but we are going to expand in the workshops as per our plan in next year. So we're going to speak with number of educators, lot of educators throughout the province. So the my first priority is that respond to your queries through the app. So that is what we are going to build. Now, the idea is how do you really share these ideas and definitions and symbols and explanations with the students? This question we need to, attend and address maybe later on in this project. But at this point in time, my only, idea sharing with you is that we are having this app developed, and we are going to use it extensively in terms of building knowledge. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Kauser. Any final thoughts before we move into our next steps, talking about what we're going to do at the next meeting and between now and then? Okay, Mark?
Real brief. I think that, the toolkit and the website are two separate
issues. Of course, they're going to, share information. And I guess I defer to Causer on the website stuff, because that's you're going to be the one who's bearing the brunt of that, not me. So that's kind of my thought on it. And but I mean, it's reasonable it's to consider it.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to add with Mark, I'm ready to take the brunt of another couple of thousand emails. So, and thank you so much for reminding me that be ready. So yes, that is there. But yes, two different things, totally. Our social media presence through website, Twitter, Facebook, Insta is what we communicate with the broader community about the project development. And again, as I said, we'll have a subgroup starting possibly from today. We are going to share with you what we are going to share there. But toolkit is definitely different. But at the end of the project, as per our initial plan, master plan, this toolkit will be hosted in the website for easy access. And but at that stage we have not decided, and because it all depends how we view it. And of course, another angle is that we are of course reaching out to policymakers, provincial level at least, and buy in and share all these things. So that will come later on in the project. But of course, these two things are very, very different. Thank you.
And Mark, excellent comments and good questions. I'm envisioning perhaps down the road, and remember, this is all just a work in progress that we'll get there when we get there. But the website, there may be one common entry portal, but it might say for educators, and they go off to a completely different site where things are for them. And then there are for academics or for, right, we'll make it as useful as it needs to be. So good, thank you. That's a really effective tool, that thumbs up. Thank you. Just to let you know, we did not have a guest speaker. I'm sorry, Gareth, go ahead.
Yeah, can I just pick up on that last point you just made?
Yes, go ahead.
When you talk about hive off to teachers or to academics, there have been enough comments made this morning about sort of developing peace culture or conflict resolution, or that this is that we need to approach this from a positive thing rather than a sort of a reactive, preventative. Well, it is preventative. That when we think about building a toolkit, let's remember, I think, to think beyond the classroom and think about resources that would help school leaders understand that I think every school, well, maybe not every teacher, and not every school administrator, but notions like inclusion and those very fundamental principles of progressive education are very well articulated in many materials already. But to develop an understanding that kids are vulnerable to being radicalized when they are marginalized, when they're isolated, when they're sidelined or not heard, there might be some tools that would be very useful for school administrators to understand that we need to create a culture that mitigates against that. I mean, Izzy was saying earlier that there might be 6 teachers in his school that get saddled with the teaching of the materials that will get developed, but there'll be 113 that aren't. And somehow I think let's not neglect to develop some resources, some robust resources that administrators can link. This is the kind of school-wide stuff that needs to happen to foster a culture that makes it less likely for children to be radicalized. Maybe that's an anticipation of the discussion about next steps, but I didn't know where to fit that up. And it seemed to tag on to your comment just now about resources for academics, resources for teachers. Well, I think resources for school leaders could be really important.
And Gareth, if I can just jump back in time, when you said to me, when I first approached you, that you thought you didn't have much to contribute to this project. Well,
I never said that.
So your experience as a school leader, particularly one as we were bringing UNESCO schools to Manitoba, and you taught me about deep school culture. I'm thrilled to have you with us, to keep that on track for us too. We'll go to Tim for our final observation and comment, and then I'm going to wrap it up with what's going on next time. Thanks, Tim.
Okay, sorry, I didn't realize it was going to be the final one, but I was also thinking, just when Gareth was speaking, just with regards to the fact that, you know, we have students who might be at risk of radicalizing in schools, but we also have students who are already radicalized or come to school with pre-existing extreme perspectives already, right? So, you know, I was thinking about, you know, the kids that feel, you know, enough trust with a teacher to tell them that they have been called a racialized slur or something like that, right? I mean, those are kids who are voicing to us already that they have experienced the brunt of other students who are already radicalized or extreme based on their pre-existing worldviews that are already there. And I think that needs to be also acknowledged in whatever that we're doing too, is that, you know, for some of it it's prevention, but for some of it it's also mitigation of existing aspects that are already in schools and in institutions and with us already. So that was it. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Tim. We're going to begin our meeting on March 11th. Remember, it's an afternoon meeting. Our next two meetings are Fridays, March 11th and March 25th, both starting at noon and going till 4 o'clock. And the March 11th meeting is going to start with a speaker that Kauser talked briefly about at the beginning. I'm not sure if everyone was on. Can you just give us like 2 minutes, Kauser, or less, on who she is and what she'll bring to us, if you want to do any preparation in advance or thinking in advance?
So I'm going to develop a poster today and share with you with her brief bio. Her name is Elisa Hattigan, and she was a very active member of white supremacist group in a couple of years ago. And so the reason I follow her in Twitter for over 5-6 years now is that her voice and her contribution is important for two reasons. She's a female, and she was in this very extreme right-wing group. And so she brings perspective from two angles. And then what happened that she exited from the group and what we call sometimes reformed. And then she now works in the field of extremism and prevention and violence. So there are more two figures in our country, as you some of you know. His name is Mark Galloway. Brad Galloway. So he's from the group they formed is called Life After Hate, and also another gentleman. His name is skipping my mind. So I wanted to bring her because you can listen to her stories, and then you can, Q&A session, all these things, because of these two perspectives, female perspective and how it feels like being in those kind of group and what it takes to get out. So a poster is coming to your way, hopefully by tonight. Thank you.
So we're going to set this up a little bit differently than with Ryan Thorpe, because we had such a short meeting. We're going to give her probably 25 minutes for her presentation, and then a full half hour or more for your Q&A. So we want to devote lots of time to that. And then we're going to revisit the terms and definitions. We're going to have a second draft of that. But I would like to ask you, what else do you need at this point so that we can prepare more things, either to get to you between meetings or to get onto the agenda for the next two meetings? I would just ask that again. What do you feel you need personally to either be informed or more educated or develop more awareness as we move forward with this project? What would be helpful? Izzy, do you want to start us off?
I think it would be good if we can come up with a collection of literature to send around where people can read on this topic. Of course, we do this on our own, and we have our expertise around this topic, and we read about it, and we, some of us have experience with it personally, and so on and so on. But I think maybe a collection of literature from different authors and different experiences about this topic may enlighten or provoke some thoughts for our upcoming sessions and so on and so on. I don't know how we would go about sharing this, but we have avenues of doing so.
Thank you. Excellent suggestion. Obviously, I'm going to look to all of you if you have anything. Just as Tim shared that great video yesterday, I think I'm very confident in your ability to select things that are appropriate. I don't think we have to vet them. I trust your ability to choose something and send it. And then Connie, snag those and we're going to find a way to house them as well. And we may decide that ultimately the things that get shared could be on the website, they could be in the toolkit. So I think we're starting to build those resources, but we look to you to contribute. I know, Kauser, you've got a lot of things and your hand is up. Can you?
No, just one thing I missed about both our core group, Linda, I and others, we discussed that, I mean, it's coming from Izzy's observation that literatures and sharing and building more knowledge on these topics, because these are very diverse topics, as you understand now. So what we are also planning that we are going to plan a webinars with experts and expert groups. So it is really problematic to bring them each into our meeting, because then we run short of our allotted time of discussions and brainstorming. So we have decided that this is just a proposition today, and we'll of course seek your input. So it is not that we are asking you to participate in the webinar. Rather, from our group, we'll officially invite people like Barbara Perry, now very lead scholar in our country, and she's currently, not currently, a couple of months ago, hired by Fed to look into the extremism in the military forces, etc. So we are going to bring them, and I'm going to moderate, and maybe Linda and I will do it. So we'll speak with them. We'll keep this webinar as tool in our website. So whenever you feel free, you have some spare time, you can listen to it, something on that nature. But of course, it is highly appreciated if some of you can come and join, because we'll advertise much before. And if you can just have 2 or 3 questions, and you don't have to stay in 1 hour and all these things. But this webinar will be our educating tools for education, and it will remain there because these all experts globally, and I have known so many people there. So you can interact, and they will speak about things. So this webinar component is our proposition and a food for thought for you today.
Thank you, Kauser. So any feedback that you have, I see a heart. Thank you, Izzy. You like the idea. And there won't be, it's not obligatory. We recognize that we're already taking your time with these meetings, but we'll try to plan those at different times of the day, maybe some in the evening, some in the afternoon, some in the morning. So not knowing what your schedules are, maybe you can dip into some of them, but they'll always be recorded and available for you as well. And I see another hand, Marianne.
Yeah, I was just going to pick up on Izzy's suggestion about, material, and I've started sorting things, books, articles, videos. I've got a whole folder of sort of infographics and diagrams that visually depict some of the definitions and things we were talking about. So I think having a shared drive where things can kind of get put into those different categories would be really helpful to start. And I guess when I listen to what Kauser's describing, though, about having a webinar with experts who are on a panel, I think that forum is very inaccessible for lots of people. And, I think as progressive educators, we really have to pay attention to doing events in a way that kind of puts into practice what we're talking about in terms of engagement, and trying to have things not come across as really academic, and inaccessible. So that would be the 2 comments I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Marianne. Kauser, just to be clear, I think you were envisioning something more like what we did with Ryan, where it's a
right.
No,
not in a panel. Marianne, is just one. I mean, let's say we are trying to understand how the community intervention took place in Scotland, because there is a wonderful case I studied. So we'll only bring 1 or 2 folks from that project, and we'll share. But it's not a big panel sort of thing. I can assure you, it's very boring and inaccessible. Totally agreed. But just 1-to-1, small 1 or 2 cases, and as an education, because reading through literature takes time and all these things. So yeah, thank you.
And with the intent that the people who participate, and I'm hoping that you'll find the time and can do it, can ask questions, and it's all for all of our background. Good, thank you. I think that's, were there any further suggestions of what you need, what would be helpful? Those are all good starting points. Thank you, everyone. With that,
if you're signing off, I put a little question in the chat that Kevin responded to. This is very logistical or very sort of just practical about our Zoom meetings. Is there a reason for the chat line, the chat area not to be open to lateral communication between group members?
What you can do is, if you click the two, there is a two function here, and you can see the names. So
no,
you can.
You can't.
So I can help with this. Zoom doesn't allow currently for participants to message privately anyone other than a host or co-host. I'm just looking on the Zoom website here. There is a setting we can change. So Kausar, maybe I can help you with that.
It's been changed since the start of the meeting. At the start of the meeting, you couldn't. Now I just looked and you can.
Okay, I'm only getting options to, oh no, sorry, it's because you're a co-host.
Oh,
so it's just, yeah, so Kevin and Kausar, you're going to be able to see everybody, but we can only see Marianne and then the two of you.
I see.
There is a setting we can change, though, I believe.
Kristen, that's weird that you're reading that, because I'm in many Zoom meetings and it's almost always open to lateral communication.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, no, in my classes, I think this is probably a university thing, because I know none of my classes allow for that at all. So that's probably why maybe somebody else. This is great.
So how do you avoid this, Kristen?
I don't know if you can, because you're on a university account. Like, I don't think you have control over that setting.
Well, I'm glad I asked. That's fine.
There should be 3 dots beside the everyone for a host, and you can click on it and it'll give you a menu. And it's like chat everyone or chat just to hosts, or so
yeah,
sort of at the chat function to the right of it, there should be something that would.
Yeah, so usually there would be, you'd be able to select anybody in the meeting. But because we're using a university account with Kausar's Zoom, it's only allowing us to message the host, which is a university thing.
Isn't that a case in point, though? Like the university, the students can't talk to each other.
Yeah, well, the thing is, not that this is even on topic, but it started that we could, and then it became a disaster, distraction, nightmare. So yeah, we could for the first like 2 weeks of the pandemic, and then they were like, never mind.
What I will do is,
Kausar, a quick question. Is there a way for you to coordinate this outside of the university? Can you do Zoom from somewhere else?
Linda, are you asking me? Okay, yeah. So I already tried this approach with the university. So what they're suggesting, to buy a license, full license, because in this particular whatever account we are given as an academic from UFW, there are limitations. You cannot do webinar, you cannot do this and that. So the webinar whole idea, I have to do from my own resource. I do have a resource myself because I run a not-for-profit. So I will run the webinar there. But Kristen brought a very important point. And if you have to buy a Zoom license, we'll buy it.
Okay, good, thank you.
Dr. Kausar, would you like to try? I have access to a Zoom account from the University of Winnipeg as well. I don't know if it's gonna do the same thing, but if you would like me to try, I'm more than happy to set a call next time and we can try my account.
No, thank you. No, thank you, Izzy. But it is a little logistically problematic for Linda and I because we manage. But are you using the University of Winnipeg account also?
Yes, because I taught at this Menno Simon, so I have access.
No, the same restrictions onto yours.
Oh, okay. Well. I did not know that. Okay.
I'm sorry for raising this at the end of the meeting. Maybe we don't all have to sit in on sorting this out. I just wanted to know.
No, thank you.
I wanted to say hi to Kevin, just him.
Well, if you hadn't raised it, we might not have ever solved the problem.
Right.
We figured out. So it was.
But shouldn't be a big deal. Let me talk to them and see for 3 years license how much it costs us, because that will even help me to do it from a central location, because it's problematic if somebody else does it, then you cannot monitor and so I will get back to you, Gareth, with this.
Well, no, just maybe by next meeting. And you know what? If it doesn't work, it's not a big deal, really. I was just curious.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That might also solve our screen sharing issues if we had a separate license, but.
Right.
Oh, okay, okay.
So it may be worth it for that, but I'm not a Zoom expert. I just use it a lot, so.
Well, before I say goodbye to everyone, Kauser, Connie, and Linda Connor, if you're there, Linda, don't go away. We just need
And
to
team, don't go.
Oh, and Tim, we need to do a bit of debriefing, if you would. But I'll say farewell to everyone else. A very productive meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Enjoyable. Is that a question, Gareth, or is that a goodbye? That's a goodbye. Bye, everyone. We'll see you. We'll be in touch, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. So, team, I mean, I just would like to, team should take a break quickly. So, team, as I approached you, I think 2 weeks ago, I just need your help, but whatever you can, it's totally, it's up to you, flexible time. So, idea is, as you have already heard that a small subgroup, then I'm going to keep Kristen with me, and then another 1 or 2 students, and one of the student position will be paid. I have already applied for a summer job, and we are going to get it. So either Kristen or somebody, they will be paid, so they shouldn't have any problem. But I really want your involvement in this whole social media website things, whatever you can. So you and I will be in direct communication, and we'll do back and forth, and especially content and content moderation. So whatever we post in Twitter and all. So what I'll do is I will kindly seek your phone number so that I can text you if something comes to my mind, and vice versa, you can text me back, so that we two are in charge. So this small subgroup will be 3-4 of us. So is it okay with you, given your?
Oh yeah, I think I'm fine.
I know. That is I thought that let's bring in, and what will happen is, of course, Linda and we are all in the touch, but we need some faster loop, in terms of messages and all these things. So I thought that once you are fully up and running, then what we'll do is I will bother you sometimes that what we should do in the website and all these things. And we have a whole for 3 years budget for website, management. So our part is do the contents. So we'll approve the contents and we'll ship it off, and it will be up. So something like this in the future. Thank you so much.
Okay, no, that sounds good. Sounds like a fun opportunity.
Thank you so much, Tim. Thank you. So, Linda, do you have any?
How did you manage through the meeting? Are you feeling okay now?
I'm actually, mild symptoms, so I'm actually, hey Connie, I tested positive on Saturday, so, but no, it's been really mild. So I've been trying to manage my classes on Teams. I have a really, my practicum student who I worked with last year from UW she's working in my classroom. It's, I don't know if you know Bidu Nadeyamo. She's really fantastic. So she's been, happy to be in as well. And I'm really happy to have her working in my room. So
ask her if she wants to join GTIP.
You were saying that. I'm going to try to do that and see what she has to say.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I sure will. She's really, really insightful, and so yeah, it'd be great. But
I'm glad you're not feeling too badly after. Is it 3 Saturdays? So it's 4 days now, isn't it? Yeah, good. Good.
So fingers crossed.
Yeah.
No, absolutely, Tim. I mean, believe me, this is what happens. I have seen my in-laws. Just a matter of time. That's all.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I've had enough time at home.
Take care, Tim.
Yeah. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So, Linda, we are at your disposal now.
Okay, just the question of how can we get a next draft of these terms and definitions? I think we had some good feedback. There's some excellent feedback in my little group. Connie, I don't know, do you want to take a crack at them as our writer then?
I can. One thing Kevin said really stuck in my head. He said, I don't feel qualified to wordsmith these.
So yeah, so
I know what he meant, because I said the same thing, like I could shorten them.
Yeah.
But heck,
I
I
think
could
that's
be,
very true.
yeah. And he really, I agree with him because I mean, I could wordsmith them down, but I might, if I'm afraid I'm going to miss key things, Linda. That's my fear. He really gave me cause for pause, and I'm thankful for that.
We
think we
need
can
the
ask
experts.
So do you think we can ask Saad to do this, Kauser?
Yeah,
I mean,
so yeah, I think I'll go with your suggestion that you floated, that let's make another small subgroup, Saad, and if Easy wants to be there, or Mark, whoever, we send an open invitation for this small subgroup to refine, these terminologies and definitions. But there is a problem. I mean, as a researcher, let me share with you. Problem is, yes, we understand that RCMP's definition is problematic, all this, but it is RCMP's definition. It is Canadian government's definition of, radicalization and all these things. So now, if we want to tweak something of our own, then it is totally okay, because we are also working in this area and all these things. But the problem is how much we are going to include and how much we're going to exclude, and will it defeat our purpose? That this whole exercise needs to be done, and it is kind of work that you have to put time. So I don't know if Dr. Saad and others, they can, but I know I am available, of course, Connie. But I think it is, Connie's observation is right. It is, for her, it will be a little difficult unless we give her something little refined, and then she can tweak it, language editing, blah, blah. But that part we have to do ourselves.
I like the idea. I don't know about if everybody else agreed. And I heard Kevin say that, and a few other people in our group, we talked lots about it, of having almost 3 portals of definitions. And, you could even write to teachers how the definitions came about. I could see this. The first one, my grade 9s, I could have a working definition for kids, but then you're going from a dictionary to almost an encyclopedic dictionary, have 3 levels. And where you keep the RCMP one, I like to ever said that too, because that lens is important.
Exactly,
Yeah,
Connie, and that is the problem in our whole system. Look, I mean, don't take it otherwise, ladies here. Since I wrote that piece, as you understand that I've received so many, all these things. So, but it is a very enlightening journey for me, right? I mean, I've never received hate mails in my whole life in Canada. This is the first time I have received, and yesterday I can share, where is it? I can share with you. Somebody quoted a number of verses from Quran, Muslims' holy book, and told me that, go fuck off and go back, all this stuff. So my point is, it is very, so my suggestion is that RCMP's definition is important because that is how they're going to use it. And our criminal code of Canada, CRC, I think 251 or 261, that defines terrorism. So the point is, we have to have them. There is no alternate. We have to have them because these are nationally accepted definition of Canada, and our project is funded by Canadian government.
Yep.
We are not. We have not raised fund like the truckers did $10 million through GoFundMe and doing our own project. This project is funded by federal government. And believe me, I didn't share today, but Linda, I and you, we are going to sit another couple of days later on to start planning for the big stakeholders meeting before March 31st, as per our master plan. So in these stakeholders, RCMP is going to be very well present because they represent Canadian government in terms of terrorism and violence extremism. So my suggestion is,
but what's really scary is some of them were part of the convoy. Like,
right?
Like I'm really concerned about that.
No, absolutely.
They're like a Trojan horse.
And I just opened up this podcast. If you want to listen, Trojan horse. So yes, Linda Connor's observation is again, this is the flip side of the problem, right? Retired RCMP officer, police, and military, right? I mean, one military serving military guys, sergeant, the rank of sergeant, quite senior. He came to the media and said that, I'm all for it and do whatever you feel like with me. He came to media. Look at the society that, so yes, Linda Connor's concern is valid, but my point is that we need to have those things there in our inventory. But yes, we can have our own definition in the front, that, and which can refer that for more information, go there, something like
Exactly. That's what I think. Like as a teacher, I mean, Kevin and I talked about that. And Linda, you know that from teaching both of you for years. The last thing I want is my kids to just memorize a bunch of stuff. That's pointless. I mean, that's why I kind of quit doing a lot of vocabulary the old fashioned way, because it showed me who was a rote learner. They didn't know anything. I could see smaller definitions, not smaller in word text, not in meaning, but then a stratification, and then the RCMP definition, the Canadian government definition. I mean, if we erase that, that's a terrible thing for kids to miss. It's like looking, and I've done lots of work with the Treaty Commission. If I don't read the words of the commissioner in 1871, how do I know how the commissioner was thinking? You know, when he calls Indians, Indians, or whatever he uses. So I'm going to erase it, keep it as a source.
As a source. And also the big point that came out from today's discussion, I think you folks have already noted that we are going to, we have to kind of steer the direction of our discussion and our toolkit, that we are developing in this project, within this project's purview, a toolkit for educators and policymakers, means practitioners, not for the students. We are not developing students' content for delivering in the class. So what we are trying to do is that we educate and we run workshops in the second year, and we educate and we give a toolkit to them. Now the issue is how teachers are going to use this toolkit. We have to address that one later in the project. But at this point, I think we have started very well. We have generated a lot of discussions, interest by now. And I think with the webinar component and bringing guest speakers, these 10, 12, that Linda has compiled, they will be encouraged and enthusiastic to, but the discussion of using and sharing with the students, it is a very distant discussion now.
But Counselor, it may not be that, and that's the difference between when you say a toolkit for educators, doesn't only necessarily mean it's only for the eyes of the educators to read at home at night when they're preparing plans. We have to, I don't think there's any, in my own mind, and I would think Connie's with me and probably Linda too, in my mind right now, I don't know what we need to give to teachers. I don't know if there are going to be things that they will share with their students or not. That's what we have to figure out. Are we simply devising tools in this kit for teachers to raise awareness so that they know what to look for and then what to do? Or are we, and I've already heard multiple people talking about the idea for deep school culture, direction to school leaders, those things have implications for the students. So I want to be careful not to say we're not putting anything in this.
Of course,
that has yet to be decided, and we have to keep those doors open, I think.
Right, absolutely. No, I'm talking only within you folks, not beyond. So my suggestion is that you see, it has bigger implications. Like if you want to develop something, then you have to talk to curricula, and how it is going to be. Whether you have heard that, as you were saying, only 6 will use it, then 113 will not. So it will remain as a binder, gathering dust somewhere in the shelf. So all these things coming up. So we are going to address those things down the road, of course. But I'm just sharing with you that our project is doing this much, and then how you are going to share it with the students, in what way. Is it a form of a curricula approved and by our policy makers, which is part of our project, and then channel down through the standard curricular? I don't know. I mean, what model we are going to develop, I have no clue at this point, because totally it's an inductive process. So maybe down the road, but I totally agree with you, Linda, that this is how we can progress.
Good, thank you. And to be determined is what I would add. Can I just redirect us back to the definitions? Because what you're talking about, Counselor, is part of that ongoing big picture. What are we going to create? And we still have got to find our way through that wilderness. We don't know yet what we need to create, but we'll figure it out. I'm very confident we have the right people in the conversation to figure it out.
No, I think so. I think so. I mean, this group is awesome. I think excellent. I mean, all of you, I mean, we can expect more. I mean, some of you are not even receiving any payment. I don't know. University has created another obstacle, which I will talk to you, Linda, later on.
For another time. But how, Counselor, do you have any thoughts on how the terms and definitions? Are you going to do another draft?
I think so. I will do another draft within the next, let's say, weekend. Then I'll share with you. But two approaches, at least what general consensus today is that one will be our working definition of these terms. And then we can adopt some of the infographics that people have suggested. So we'll choose one and we'll put this data and that it will create infographic. But our working definition in one side, and in the other side, whatever we have compiled so far from agencies, researcher, US government, UK government, because kind of culturally we are same. So we'll have that glossary and our working definitions.
I like that. But for now, the focus is creating our working definitions. So you can compile those and gather them and have them housed in a repository. That's excellent. And then we can tap those for the teacher toolkit, where and how much you need. But for now, sorry, excuse me, just to create something like what I gave you, that, a short handout with those definitions that you just almost starting from scratch. What those big ideas are. You heard the feedback, and I took lots of notes too. So maybe between you and Connie and I, if you can do that first draft so that the terminology is correct, and then Connie and I can feed in with
sure.
accessible language.
Absolutely. So what I'll do is I will work with Connie's last draft. Is it okay, Connie? I mean, I'll work from your last draft and
the one I sent. The one I sent? Which one are you talking about?
The
one I sent to the teachers is the last draft, as far as I know. I took out all those sources.
Right, that one. Yeah, all the sources are out. So it will be. So I'll add my thoughts and my. I'll think a little bit of our today's discussion as well, and I'll send it for your review by weekend.
You want to draw Saad into the conversation?
I think it would be a very good idea. So I'll approach him also, right? I mean, I'll send him an email.
He had some great feedback in my group about things that I'd almost want to invite him to write it, but I asked him if he would be willing, and he said sure, he would take part.
Absolutely.
So I kind of
I'll shoot an email. Fantastic,
Good.
Fantastic. I'll shoot an email.
Okay. So then the next meeting, I think that we're going to have more than enough already to talk about. We're going to have our guest speaker for an hour, and we're going to spend time on the terms and definitions.
Correct, and finalize, and no further, elaboration on that.
I think that, and I think we can spend lots more time, and we can spend much more time in the breakout groups and really work through those.
Breakout is good. Breakout idea is good because smaller group, more in-depth discussions, and we can expand the group time like 30 minutes or something like that. Yeah.
Or more. We'll talk about that further as we get closer to the.
No problem. Yeah, and Jamboard, because Marianne's idea is working. So Jamboard. Right. And one quick thing, Linda. I mean, because we already spoke about her involvement in our area. Let's see, because we have to think a little bit, because she's contributing so much, right? I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has more to, and just note that Izzy didn't need, there's at least $400 today because Greg didn't show up, and $500 that Greg didn't show up, and Izzy doesn't need a substitute.
Yeah,
exactly. So there's, I don't know if you can redirect that to an honorary.
But the university is creating so much hurdles for me, unbelievable. So the vice president called me yesterday, Gino Distasio. He just called me that I need to talk to you. And I'm discussing with him a lot of things. So the problem with honorary.
Part of this conversation, or
sure. 100%. No. Later.
I don't want to waste your time, Connie. I know you're busy. You're welcome to stay, but if you.
Right. I mean, if you're volunteering.
I might scoot out if that's okay. Yeah, there's 15 things going on because of I've got a kid on the Trappers Festival board.